Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink. It is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today we are going to be having a look at the Atlas of Worlds passive tree as it's going to exist in 3.18. This was announced by GGG about an hour and 10 minutes before I started this stream, so I've only really had a quick look at it. I wanted to give more of a first impressions type overview as to what it's looking like, and just making certain, though, in the background that the stream is working. If you are watching this after the fact, I will put out a more condensed version at some point, but this will be a lot of discussion with chat as well. And as I say, first impressions, there'll be a whole lot of things that will turn out to be, get improved as we know more about what's going on. So let's just see if I can find the stream on my background. It doesn't look like I can currently. Yeah, captivated interest that FS is raising there is the new version of one of the Maven passives. Everything is released at once, so that's where everything is released at once went from the Atlas passives. It's now found a new home, and it is going to be something you can spec into if you feel like you're a little bit, well, shall we say, at the height of hubris. Then you can have this as well to add up even more craziness to Maven invitations. I think most people won't spec this, but it is there as a good little option to have. You can spec into it if you're feeling particularly crazy. Now, I just want to check that, yeah, the screen is working well. Okay, good. So here we have the Atlas passive tree, and I think it's worth going through each of the different things in order. GGG provided, and I put a link down in the description below to the actual document they provided, but it's a list of everything in a more digestible form, and then you've got the actual topography of how everything connects on the Atlas tree itself. The way things connect matters and does have a big impact on what you can pick. So if you're thinking of picking 16 different mechanics, that will tell you whether or not you can pick them all. But let's have a look through and see what we've got. So you're saying shaping of the seas has been changed. This is the sort of thing that some of the stuff that we'll miss is well worth it. Shaping mountains, shaping skies, shaping the seas is here. 15% chance to be one tier higher, and now I have a special implicit, which, yeah, I think that's different to what it used to be. And these are all 15% to be one tier higher rather than 25%. So there's, oh no, they were always 15%. It's 25 with the whole lot of them. Okay, so let's go through each of the different sections of this. So we start with Abyss. I don't believe there's any changes to Abyss. My feelings on Abyss in 3.17 was that it was a medium quality set of nodes for loot, and a pretty strong one if you wanted to focus on XP. If you want to focus on XP, Abyssal Army in conjunction with Abyss Scarabs, really, really, really good. And that's something that is worth keeping in mind if you're wanting to just go for a really safe XP strategy. That's right, FS has confirmed it used to be my favoured map drop chance, which they've got some other support for instead, so those implicits are an alternative to that. Abyssal Troves dropping rare items with Abyss sockets is only at the mean value. It's something that just doesn't come up good. It doesn't come up well because they're not going to be influenced. They're not going to be special bases. They're going to be bad items, and that Abyss socket takes up a suffix slot. Yes, you can use hollow fossils to make good items, but not actually all that often. They've not been that popular this league, and they are very difficult to make work. The Abyss nodes, though, yeah, I think Abyss is in a spot where if you actively enjoy Abyss content, then you should feel perfectly fine to take them. If you don't like it, you're not missing anything important. One thing that is interesting here, though, is the ability to get the 6 mod Abyss jewels. So one of the nodes down here is Corrupted Gaze. Abyss jewels found in your maps have a 20% chance to be corrupted and have at least 5 random modifiers. This creates jewels you couldn't get through other means. I got exactly 0 good ones at these last league, but good ones do exist. They definitely do exist. Just because I didn't get one doesn't mean that that it's not worth taking, because the ones that do exist are worth quite a lot, especially with Replica Shroud of the Lightless still being quite a good item. And so Corrupted Gaze is definitely worth your while considering, especially if you like Abyss. Votive Horde is still bad, and Lightless Legion was quite good for loot in 3.17 because it meant that you got more Amanamu encounters, and Amanamu had the challenge related to him. That's not the case anymore, but Lightless Legion is still okay days 1, 2, and 3 of the league. 1, 2, and 3 of the league, this is going to just fountain level 86 bases. If you're fast to maps, Lightless Legion is a really strong candidate for making early currency from the Abyss content. So do consider that. But you will need to be fast, not just to maps, but to tier 14 plus. So if you get to tier 14 plus quickly, Lightless Legion is great. If you're not going to get that far in progression early, then in that case, it's probably SSF only. Or just if you like, if you like Abyss content. It's good enough that you don't need to feel bad about wasting points here. All of the Abyss stuff on the Atlas is pretty solid. I don't think there's any changes to Bestiary. I do think one thing that a lot of players have been sleeping on is just how much you can focus on getting Krakic Chimerals. And so if you allocate the Hunt for Creation and Natural Selection, you can make it so that you are much more biased towards getting Imprint Beasts. This is a strong strategy late in a league, especially once you've got a whole bunch of Gilded Bestiary Scarabs saved up. Very much a trade league strategy. Although I guess you can do it in SSF as well. You just have to use a lot less of those beasts. But that's something really solid. FS is raising in chat that the Bakecast interview confirmed the blocking notables give 2% chance for each other extra content. I need to confirm that. I need to watch the Bakecast interview to be certain as to what's going on with that. I have not had any time to do that because I spent too much time writing other things. So I honestly don't know what the situation is on that front. Derek is confirming yes as well. So that makes them a lot better. Like, even the ones that are pretty mediocre start feeling a bit better at this point. I don't think you want to take those early in progression. I think you want to spec into them maybe when you hit 120 Atlas passives. And the reason for that is that there's a bunch of points that you're going to want to tie up early on in getting challenges. Now, this isn't going to apply for everyone, and not everyone's going to be going for all the challenges. But I think, for instance, most people will want to allocate the Covetous Shrine node early. Covetous Shrines and Gatekeepers from Breach. You want to allocate these early, and you want to keep them allocated until you just happen to get the Domination challenge for defeating a Breach Lord outside its domain while under the infect of a Covetous Shrine. And once you've done that, then at that point you can unspec one or both of those mechanics if you want. Of course, you can keep them if you enjoy shrines, and if you enjoy Breach content, you can keep them. They're all fine. But that means that you're going to want to not block that type of content. And I think that's going to be a focus you're going to have, is not blocking content until you've done challenges related to it. Then, if you don't like the content, then you can just say, all right, it's gone. So yeah, Bestiary is in an interesting spot where I think that the chance to bias yourself towards getting more Krakic Chimerals is really significant. Early league, it's Phenomenal Plagued Arachnids that are the best beast. That's the split beast. But those are, I think they're just a bit rarer. I could be wrong on that front, but I believe that imprints are more common than the split beasts are. Someone can confirm that though. Okay, so otherwise Bestiary, like there's a lot of support there. The best way to use Bestiary is generally in a party with other players, but you can do it solo as well, and you'll get a whole bunch out of there. Okay, so yeah, more Bestiary. Again, all of this seems to be unchanged. Good stuff if you're wanting to focus on it, but not so good that you have to feel like you got to take it, which is a good spot to be in. Betrayal is interesting. Betrayal is really good early league if you can make that work. And yeah, just got a comment in chat that there's no node that disables Betrayal. I was hoping to use that. I do think it would be really good if there was a node that you could allocate that stopped Jun from just showing up by surprise in your maps, because getting an intervention surprise, especially if you're on a lower end PC, is absolutely brutal. I know that even on my old PC, which was a 970, so not total rubbish, it was a 2016 gaming rig. Even on that PC, every time Betrayal spawned, ouch, frame loss. That was really, really nasty. So it would be really good if they would do that. But a couple of things with Betrayal that I think are significant. You can really, really focus up getting yourself a lot of Katarina fights by doing intelligence gathering. A few spec intelligence gathering. I'm trying to remember where that is on the Atlas passive tree. It's where are we? I think it's near the top. What is it? Let's just highlight one of the Betrayal things. and see from the interactiveness that the GGG version of this is so much worse than the others. So we have Test of Loyalty, Effective Leadership, Bribery. We have that. Oh, they make this so user unfriendly. Top right, you're saying, yes, Intelligence Gathering. There we go. Thank you, Alex, for that tip there. Yeah, so Intelligence Gathering is something that will cause you to be able to get a lot of Katarina fights early on. And you can get these Katarina fights without spending your Betrayal missions. I think that this is a really, really strong choice early on. It just means that you'll be constantly getting a safe house every 10 maps. And those safe houses will drop reasonable loot. Like, it won't be the better tiers of stuff because you'll have all low tier members. But they still drop things like, you got a slim chance of getting Paradoxica, but you'll also get a whole bunch of the normal drops that the masters themselves have, and also just so much XP as well. So yeah, it's really, really solid. It's really, really solid having Intelligence Gathering early on because it will just apply all through your mapping. So that's something that you could even consider, maybe not quite rushing to, but trying to get before you hit 50 points. And that's something that a lot of people do underrate. Focused investigation, of course, is going to be essential for any betrayal-oriented strategy, unless you're playing in Trade League and you're just fine to just purely buy the Scarabs off other players. Not the Scarabs, the Sextants, that give you a guaranteed Jun mission. And then we have Bribery. Bribery is somewhat of a trap. Immortal Syndicate members are 200% more likely to offer to bargain for items. Broadly speaking, I think that bargaining is not very good. I would not suggest taking Bribery, even if you are doing a Betrayal focus, because you generally want to be executing them. You generally want to be doing other things. You want to be cutting deals or executing them most of the time. And bargaining for items is usually one of the less powerful things. That said, you can get lucky with this. There are definitely screenshots of people getting things like multiple mirrors from stuff like this. It just doesn't happen very often. Joe's asking in chat, is Betrayal the only place for Scarabs now? The only change that was made to Scarab supply was the Eater of Worlds and Exarch nodes that cause Scarabs to be duplicated are no longer going to be there. The ones that cause monsters to drop Scarabs will still be there, and those were the good ones. The bad ones that were related to Scarabs are gone. So that's the thing that's significant with it there. It's you'll still be able to get Scarabs. You'll probably get maybe 92% as many Scarabs from the Eater of Worlds and Searing Exarch stuff as you did last league. It'll be a little bit down, but it won't be much down. And there is also a Winged Scarab card, which I think will be pretty rare. Max is saying in chat that there is a divination card that was added for a Winged Scarab, a random Winged Scarab. I think that's going to be pretty rare. All of the other Scarab divination cards in the game are based around how rare Scarabs were back in 3.5. Scarabs have got a lot more common since then, but they all seem to be based upon Scarabs not being super common items. Okay, so in terms of other things, the one that I really wanted to point out here is effective leadership. Immortal Syndicate members in your maps are 100% more likely to be accompanied by their leader. This means that 10% chance becomes 20%, which is meaningful. It's still lowish, but you will see them a bit. But the key thing is that Immortal Syndicate leaders encountered in your maps drop veiled items. If you have Elrion in charge of a safe house, this is a gold mine. If you have... who else is there that's particularly good early on? Elrion's fantastic at all times. Gravicius is good early on, really good early on. Rin is good early on. If you can get Rin, Gravicius, and or Elrion in charge of safe houses, then effective leadership is a really good node and will help you make a bunch of currency early on. I really do like this one. I think it's something to definitely take. Operative Strongbox, I'll have a look there and see exactly what the deal is with it. And we'll, I'll get to the Strongbox ones when we get there because that was something, I haven't looked at all of the details there in advance. Like I did a bit of a once over of the passive tree before this stream, but it's not like, this is a first impressions. This is not a, I've already studied everything. It's only been out an hour so far. And So Betrayal side of things, we have Betrayal. We also have Test of Loyalty, which is one of the best nodes on the Atlas for Betrayal. In fact, it is the best node for Atlas. Executing them grants them double rank up, so that means that it's much quicker to get people to rank 3, and it also means that if you just want to jail them, then it'll be quicker to set them up to be jailed, so you'll be able to get all of your safe house experience quicker as well. This is a fantastic node. If you're wanting to do a Betrayal scheme, then this is the way to go. Overall, my thoughts on Betrayal: this is something that 90% of players won't touch, but 10% of players will love. It's pretty solid. I think it's looking like a good set of options without being amazing. And I think, yeah, it's a pretty decent part of the passive tree. Yeah, it is. I do think it would be good if they just listed the changes. It is something that makes this a lot harder. I agree that it's sort of annoying that they haven't done everything, that they haven't done the clear comparison. That would be definitely a lot better. Beyond, I think everything is still the same. The key thing that's changed with Beyond is that Beyond is not going to be on the map device, and so you're not going to be able to get as much a benefit out of Beyond as you could in 3.17. And I think everything is the same though. Just checking quickly. 30% merging radius, yeah, that's correct. That's the same as it used to be. Maybe some of these small nodes have changed. If they have, I don't know it. I think all of Beyond support is in a medium place until you get to an extremely powerful character. If you've got an extremely powerful character, you probably want to spec into Beyond, because Beyond is just such a powerful loot multiplier once you get to that sort of point in progression. As well as that, it's also an XP multiplier, and it's the biggest XP multiplier around. Beyond can also be really crazy in conjunction with Blight encounters, because Blight spawns a lot of monsters in one place. Yeah, John, the map device, the Kirak missions are being changed. The details are in the patch notes. Dawn, no, they don't highlight changes, which is annoying. The main things that are changing will be the keystones when we get to those, because they're the new thing. But there's actually not all that much that's changing in the other spots. Blight is getting Epidemiology is, yeah, I think that's still exactly what it used to be. All of the Blight support on the tree is pretty solid if you really like it. And it does a lot of it does a lot for making your Blights better. I think Blight is a love it or hate it mechanic, and the Blight content on the Atlas, the support for it is probably at the mediocre level. So if you like Blight, it's good enough to spec. If you don't like Blight, I don't think it's something you should feel in any way that you're missing out on anything for. And like we were saying, synergizes really well with Beyond. Having a quick look to see if anything here has been changed that I recognise. It's still only 3% chance. Spores on the Wind is actually pretty bad. Maps found in your area have a 3% chance to have an areas contain a Blight encounter enchantment modifier. The Delirium version of this is one of the best nodes on the Atlas, and the Blight version of it is just terrible because 3% chance to have multiple layers of Delirium is a lot better than 3% chance to have a Blight encounter that essentially replicates a low-end Scarab. And yeah, I'm just not that impressed with that cluster. I mean, you do get the lucky Blight chests, which are alright, but it's only one. So yeah, Blight Spawn is one of the reasonable mods as well. Oils being 25% chance to be one tier higher is essentially 50% more oils if you tend to rank up your lower tier oils. So that's something that's pretty significant there. Yeah, that's a good point that's been made in chat, that Blight can be something that's relaxing if you've got a character that excels at it. It can be something where you can just set the Blight going and then just go and do something else quickly, like organize a trade or something. And that's something that will be that's a powerful option. Yeah, Shadow Shaping is definitely one of the more... There's a bunch of really interesting keystones. I really like what they've done with the keystones so far. So from a breach perspective, this all looks the same, doesn't it? We have a whole bunch of 1% chance to get a breach. We've got the increased AoE, monster density, and speed for Flash Breach. Flash Breach is solidly in the middle tier. It's something that has been extraordinarily good in the past era of the game. Like 3.13, 14, 15, 16, I think it was. Flash Breach was amazing. It's not as nuts as it was, but it also has a lower opportunity cost than it had then. So it's still pretty good, and if you're running a breach strategy, this one's required. Call of Zeshtula is something that is basically meme tier, except for the fact that there is a challenge to do this. So this is something you're going to want to spec and then unspec once you have actually done the Zeshtula encounter. Most people that have tried this out have said it's been pretty disappointing. You just don't get that many breaches. You don't see Zeshtula often, and the hands of Zeshtula underwhelm. So nothing absolutely and utterly rubbish, just that it's pretty mediocre and forgettable. Maps have 4%. Yeah, all of this is still the same, I believe. Exactly the same as it used to be. Gatekeepers is another one that you want to spec this early, and then you want to unspec it late. The reason you want to spec it is so that you can do the challenges that are related to breaches. Killing a breach lord outside of their domain. You're going to do this with both any breach lord while under the effect of a covetous shrine. That's going to require specking this and the covetous shrines node for a period. And then you're also going to want to do this until you get the defeat Chayula outside its domain, unless Chayula can be killed in Maven's Invitation, the Feared, for that one. So again, this one is essential for the challenge as well, slightly less so than Zeshtula, but still significantly important for the purposes of doing your challenges. So you're probably going to want to spec these early, then unspec them. Of course, if you want to stay with a breach strategy, then keep them. Within Their Grasp is an interesting one. People have done the maths on this and it just doesn't seem all that good, but it is something that's just fun to get a full breachstone sometimes, so that's the main reason people take it. It's probably a bit less powerful than the nodes would otherwise make you think. Within Their Grasp is here as well, so it's a 5-point node from the top right of the tree, so it's quite a high cost, and the lead-up nodes to it are just like, they're just not all that good. You go from 10% chance to get a breach boss to 14% with these, and then you have the chance to get a breach stone. It's going to proc about 1% of the time that you're going to get a breach stone, and about 0.1% of the time, that's 1% of maps will have a breach. Sorry, no, about 1% of the time you'll get a breach stone from this. That when you open a breach, so it's 1 per 100 breaches. It's not all that good, and then only 0.1% of the time that you open a breach will it be one of the enriched ones. So yeah, that's pretty underwhelming. We've got to find out on that, Arthur. We've got to find out whether it can be completed in the invitations or not. That's something that we will discover with a little bit of time. Next, we have the Conquerors section, and first of the brand new keystones. This is the Perfect Storm. We already knew this one. Cirrus is fully unleashed and is at monster level 85, and Cirrus has a 20% chance to drop an Awakened support gem. So Cirrus doesn't normally drop Awakened supports now. Historically he did, but they were then moved to the Maven. Now this way will allow you to get an Awakened support from Cirrus, and also you will be able to get to fight him at full power. And so that's something that's definitely going to be interesting. A good point that's been raised in chat there by Graham is that, like, sometimes because there's new Atlas passives, this does increase the opportunity cost of taking something that you feel is weak, but that is a lot of fun to play around with. I think that the majority of your Atlas passive points are still going to be spent on stuff like that, stuff that's not essential. There's a few more ones that will feel essential, and so that's going to be something that is going to be, it's going to be something that's a meaningful factor always. But I think that generally, like in 3.17 towards the end of the league, I could have easily unspec'd Abyss and not felt like I was really sabotaging my Atlas tree, or I could have unspec'd Heist. Like I could have unspec'd one of these clusters, not just clusters, but one of these entire mechanics, and had a bunch of points to spend elsewhere. And I just kept swapping things around during the time. One thing that's been raised in chat, I just want to check this. There was a 10% chance for Cyrus to drop an Awakened support gem. I believe that's gone now. I think the only way to get an Awakened support from Cyrus now is from the Perfect Storm. I think it's been removed entirely from the mod that used to have that. I think that may have been Conquered Conquerors. I think this previously was 25%, 25%, and 10% for Cyrus to drop an Awakened skill gem. So that's now been changed to being in the Perfect Storm. So This is one of the things where there's been a meaningful change. But I think that for most people, unless you are really focused on doing Cyrus back to back to back, like, you know, trading for a dozen sets or more, I don't think that that really came up all that much. So that one is gone. I think it'd be interesting, just on Yo-Yo's comment about the Uber versions of the bosses causing an increase in price to the access keys to the normal fights. I think that'll be true for some of them, but I do think that there'll be a bunch of them to be... I do think that there'll be a bunch of them that are still very affordable. Yeah, Bridgeface, there's a blocking node for Heist, and it's a terrible idea to take it, because there's going to be, like, there's always demand. Like, you don't actually need to run Heist to profit from them. If you're in Trade League, you just pick up those blueprints, pick up those contracts, and you sell them when you've got bulk, and it's just like a free... It's like every map that you're running having the Hoarder Divination card dropping in it. It's just like free currency every now and again. That will build up over time, and then eventually you'll just go and dump it on someone and make a whole bunch of currency. If you want to block it, I think blocking Heist is one of the highest cost nodes you can block, because it takes no time to do the Heist content. It's just like, a smuggler's cache, yoink, I'll take that. Hey, that's an average of an Exalt shard every single time there's one of them that drops. And, you know, yeah, you get 50 of those in your mapping, and suddenly you're looking at buying an upgrade with it. That's assuming you don't have any interest in running Heist yourself. If you've got interest in running Heist, then even better. But it's just free currency to pick the stuff up and then sell it to players that do want to do it. Especially this league, actually, more so than past leagues. There's a divination card for Mage Blood, and the more that we hear about the implementation of Arch Nemesis, the less it seems like Headhunter is being nerfed. So Headhunter is going to be weaker than it was in 3.17, but not as much as people thought. So this means that stack decks are far better than they were in the past as well. And then once you've done that, you will be able to... you will then be able to go and... Yeah, where am I going? Sorry. Stack decks will be more valuable. I just lost my train of thought entirely there. Stack decks will be more valuable because there's a Mage Blood Divination card. And this will be a big deal. And Heist is the single best source in the game of stack decks. So Heist will be the single best source in the game of the Mage Blood Divination card, probably, unless it drops from a very popular map. And honestly, whatever map it drops from will be popular if it's a map. But that's going to be a really significant factor as well. We might see stack decks at 30 or 40 to the Exalt instead of being 70 to the Exalt. And if that's the case, those Heists that drop stack decks are going to be worth a lot. Like, we might see, if the economy is anything like it was last league, you might see 20 Chaos Deception contracts. Uber Cortex, yeah, it's going to have the synthesized items that... we'll get to that in a sec when we get to the synthesis section of the tree, but it's going to drop synthesized items with unusual implicits on them, which sounds like a big deal, to be honest. Like, that's probably the single best of the new rewards. Yeah, if the card drops from something like Tane's Lab, that's going to be crazy. If that's the Mage Blood Div card. We don't know yet. It could be somewhere crazy. It could be from a boss. It could be from a map. It really just depends what GGG want to promote running. It'd be really bad if it is from Heist Monsters, though. That'd be kind of crazy. Okay, we have the Conquerors section we were talking about. There is a change to Conquered Conquerors, like we were talking about before. So this is essentially, in Solo Self-Found, this is a 69% increase in your chances of getting Conquerors Exalts, which is nice. That's pretty significant, and that's because these two effects multiply. The increased chance to get a Conqueror map, and then the increased chance to get the Conqueror Exalt. That's a pretty significant boost. So do keep that one in mind, as it's going to be a big deal. Martial Forces not nerfed. So 20% quantity pack size from the 20% increased quantity and pack size from your Conqueror maps. This is going to mean that most of the people who go Delirium juicing will be using Martial Forces to do it. Everything else here looks pretty normal. And so we have Delirium. Delirium Descent into Madness is one of those ones that this is essential for getting the 200. There's a challenge to get 200 Delirium splinters from one map. Descent into Madness is a huge boost to that. It's going to cause you to hit the higher tiers of Delirium more quickly in the map, which is therefore going to cause you to get a lot more splinters, because every monster that you kill once you're far from the mirror is worth a lot more than the ones close to it. So that's going to be a big deal. Who is this alchemist? And hey Steve, how's it going? Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff. And also, as Patrick's saying in chat, Martial Force is so much more strong now that it stacks with Eldritch Influence. Eldritch Influence and also potentially Shaper or Elder Influence as well. Elder Influence adds more monsters to a map, so probably want to consider using Elder Scarabs. At least give it some thought. You might decide a different Scarab's right for you. Singular Eternity is one that is very strong if you want to mess around with Delirium when your character is weaker. Now, the Delirium cluster hasn't gotten stronger or weaker. This is the same as it was in 3.17, but it is also a lot stronger. And the reason it's stronger is because Delirium's on the map device. So this cluster is a lot better than it's been in the past, because you can force Delirium onto maps for 16 Chaos whenever you want. So this is going to be a big deal. Yeah, Arthur, you can. That was confirmed by Chris in the live stream. So yes, you can influence Conqueror maps now. One thing we don't know about influence Conqueror maps, this is something that I was thinking about, like, they very seldom drop Shaper influenced items or Elder influenced items, but I am curious if a, say, Drox's Citadel that is Elder influenced, can it drop an item that is simultaneously Elder influenced and Drox influenced? I don't know. I think the answer is probably no, but I don't know. Does Singular Focus nullify Keystones? I'll answer that when I get to it, Destin, because I'm just not sure off the top of my head, and I don't want to jump forward and backwards in the document to check that info out. On the question of where I think Exalts will be price-wise this league, I would not be surprised to see Exalts start around the, push up to the 100-120 Chaos range, then start falling down as more people start doing Delirium. But what's really going to send shockwaves through the economy is when, because everyone underestimates Harvest for 12C, someone will post a guide as to how I made 3 mirrors from Harvest on the map device. And it'll be an easy thing to follow. This happened the last time Harvest was on the map device, and then as a result of that single post on Reddit, ended up causing the Chaos to Exalt exchange ratio to change sharply. One thing that's significant though is that Harvest being one of the better options to use on the map device, Harvest being more available actually causes more pressure on Exalts as well, because even though choosing to use Harvest removes Chaos Orbs from the economy, most of the strongest things you can do with Harvest crafts actually consume Exalts because they use meta mods. So it does a whole bunch of silly stuff there. Erin is asking in chat, does the keystone that says maps contain no Delirium mirrors work with the Zana Delirium 16 Chaos bench? Yes, the nodes that say that a certain mod is banned, they appear to just remove the base chance. You can then add that mod on via use of Kirak mods. So I believe, and I just want to test this in game, but for the moment assume that if you allocate the Delirium as sealed mod, and then you use the Kirak mod from the crafting bench, then yes, you will get a Delirium mirror. And a very good point that Patrick's making in chat, that recombinators will put upwards pressure on the price of mirrors compared to last league. Yes. Recombinators will look like they are the most extreme form of crafting that we've seen in a long time. We want to really test them out, but for the moment, I'm assuming that they are like an Awakener's Orb that works with non-influence mods. And for that reason, they could do some really ridiculous stuff, and they're going to push towards some really crazy items existing. And the better that the best items are, the more demand there is for mirrors. I think Mageblood will go down in price because of the div card, but we'll have to see exactly where it settles. It's really, Mageblood comes down to if there's 5,000 people if there's 5,000 of them in circulation that are being traded, then what's the 5,000th wealthiest player able to pay for it? That's what determines the price for it. And then as you start adding more players in to that, then yeah, you start seeing the price go down, as you know, with a divination card. But also, there's a large number of players that make a couple of hundred exalts every map. Betrayal Nodes look good, Brian. Oh, sorry, Ben. We were discussing those earlier. If you can rewind on YouTube. One of the things I like about YouTube streams is you can rewind them. If you rewind to the start, you'll be able to see the discussion we had there. But I think broadly, the Betrayal nodes are looking like they're pretty solid at the moment. If you like Betrayal, you can definitely rush them. Especially in Trade League, you can pick up the Sextants. And like those Sextants will be expensive early on. You'll need to unlock your first Sextant to use it. But once you do that, you'll be able to do a lot with them. Now, the Delirious map side look a bit weaker in this league, and that's because of the changes with having Delirium on the map device. So Compulsive Hoarder is fine for both the Delirium Mirror and for Delirious maps. The Delusions of Persecution doesn't do all that much because Delirium mirrors don't spawn very many simulacrum bosses. Delirium bosses are rare in mirrors. They're mostly in Delirious maps, and so I think that Delusions of Persecution is at the weaker end, and unless you are doing a strategy of Delirious mapping. If you are doing a Delirious mapping strategy, then Pathological is still very good, and that's the key support for it. And if you take Pathological, you definitely want to take Delusions of Persecution. Compulsive Hoarder, though, is solid on any Delirium setup that you've got. I think the more that I look at the fact that Headhunter is... that there's 80 Arch Nemesis mods makes me think that Headhunter will still be very, very strong. It really comes down to how well Inspired Learning substitutes for Headhunter, which is something we're not going to know until we've played with it. What if there is a massive solar storm on Friday and knocks out all the satellites and power stations? Now that would be something that would ruin the league start a little bit. Delusions will help with the challenge as well. Yeah, that's so Delusions of Persecution. So what Delusions of Persecution? Oh yeah, the small. It helps a little with the challenge, yeah, to get 200. I think you'll get 200 without it because once you start getting those Delirium bosses very delirious, they take a while to kill, and sometimes that can be hard to justify while you're under the time pressure of the retreating mirror. So we'll see how that goes. I think for the moment, my advice is probably don't take Delusions of Persecution unless you have Pathological or unless you are trading for Delirious maps and or Delirium orbs. That's my feeling there. That which you seek is actually a lot worse than it's been in the past, and that's because the 4% chance to contain a Mirror of Delirium just doesn't do much when you've got the ability to force mirror onto the Mirror of Delirium onto maps whenever you want it. So this is still a solid cluster, but it's not something that I expect. I expect many players that have taken this in 3.17 will drop it in 3.18. Yes, Shroudwalker is gone, but there are some new replacements for it. There's probably some bad mods in the pool. I have the Delve section here. Now, Delve does not seem to have all that much in the way. Delve does not seem to have all, sorry about the pun there, all that much that is important for challenges. Really, the thing that's most significant in the Delve section is not the chance to get extra Nico missions. You can just get an unlimited amount of Scarabs in trade, and even in SSF, you probably have all of the rusted Scarabs you want. The one that's a real killer is Sulfite Infusion. This thing is amazing. Just getting hundreds and hundreds of extra Sulfite when you're mapping normally. Hey, Alexander, thanks for the super chat there. I am thinking I will league start with a minion build. I will league start Absolution with a respec into Arakali's Fang potentially once I can get it. Maybe going through Skeleton Mages. Shane raises a good point there that picking a good map for Delirium helps a lot. Shore, Tropical Island, Port, Shore is reasonable. Beach, no, Beach is not on the Atlas this time, I don't think. There's a whole bunch of long linear maps. Strand is okay too. There's a whole bunch of things that are really solid. We did lose the +2 for Maven Invitations, +2 levels, but that didn't seem to work from a loot perspective. It made them harder, and it made them more fun, but it didn't make them actually drop more loot. So yeah, Sulfite Infusion is a big thing if you're into Delve. This allows you to boss rush, And because Delve produces so many maps, you can actually boss rush pretty consistently. Just pick, I think it's tier 14 that has all of the really cruisy layouts. So Delve will drop a whole bunch of tier 14 maps for you. You horizon them into maps and then use Sulfite Infusion, boss rush, and then suddenly you've got all of your Sulfite back, even if you've got no Nico missions. And you will get Nico missions, you will get Scarabs while you're doing it. I do think that Delve really needs Scarab nodes in it. I think that if Delve was given nodes that drop Scarabs, people would be much more willing to play it. Stream of Consciousness hasn't come up yet. Shaper and Uber Elder both share a keystone. That is correct. That is correct. Aaron, I think for the moment, probably start by removing nothing from maps, then remove the things that spend a lot of that take a lot of time to do, and that you're not doing because you're just not interested in doing them. So maybe you see blights and you're like, oh, I can't be bothered doing blights anymore. At that point, you go, all right, we'll skip that one. We'll seal off the blights because I can't be bothered doing them right now. If a mechanic takes 5 seconds or less, then you probably don't want to skip it. Guarded Hordes, I don't recall this being very good. I've only taken the old version of this, so pre-317, and I wasn't very impressed with it. 5% chance of a double Sulfite is neither here nor there, and Sulfite veins and chests are being guarded by Sulfite hoarding monsters. I don't recall that from being very significant. That's my feeling there. Packed with Energy is funny in that this actually makes maps quite a bit easier. It's really weird. It's one of the few things that is the reverse of juicing. But it really gives your character a huge boost. 3% all max elemental resistances when doing map bosses if you're using Nico. If you're using a Nico mission, 105% extra damage and 45% move speed. This thing is nuts for when you're wanting to run a difficult in-map encounter, and it's something that you might actually consider taking early league and just using it on Conquerors. You know, you're running Conquerors, you're like, all right, I will take Pact with Energy, and then I'm just going to go, all right, yoink, I will run this on my Conqueror maps, use a Nico mission, and boom, make the fights a little easier than they otherwise would be. It's something that's really funny in that sense. It's one of the strangest things on the Atlas. A couple of questions about efficient ways to make currency early league. My first suggestion is, if you like Heist, Heist. My second suggestion applies to people who don't like Heist. In that case, you want to find a mechanic that you really like, aggressively trade for Scarabs related to it. I'm considering doing this with Expedition, although I haven't made up my mind yet. So I'll just be trading aggressively for Rusted and Polished Expedition Scarabs, spec hard into that on your Atlas, and push to level 16 maps fairly quickly. Once you're there, focus on running that content and find a way to profit from it. You'll be one of the few people doing it, and as a result, everything that is generated by that content you'll do really well from. Is there a list of mods the Sentinels apply to the monsters? No, we don't know that yet, Shanjak. That's something we're going to have to find out later. Thoughts on Abyss? Abyss is medium power. If you enjoy Abyss content, then spec the Abyss nodes. You won't feel you wasted your points. Don't take Votive Horde, it's pretty bad. If you don't enjoy Abyss, then you probably want to go... Yeah. If you don't enjoy Abyss, then you don't need to feel bad for skipping it. Okay, now, talking about things that are more powerful. So far, our conclusion on pretty much every cluster has been that the changes haven't been all that significant, and there's nothing that's so strong that you have to take it. Essence is the exception. I don't care how much you hate essences, you need to take them. They're simply the strongest the strongest points on the Atlas, pretty much. The essences are absolutely bonkers. They do so much for so little investment, and especially early league, but even later league, they just end up being an absolute fountain of wealth. I think that in a trade league, essences are mandatory. In solo self-found, they're mandatory. No matter how much you hate essence content, you need to take these maps, these mods. That's disappointing. I'd rather there wasn't anything I was saying that for, but I'm going to say it for essences. The one that's an exception, Crystal Lattice. Crystal Lattice is needed for a challenge, but it may make essence monsters too hard. If it makes them too hard, then you're not going to get any rewards for them if you have to run away from them. So that's something to keep in mind there. But you probably want to take everything else and then take Crystal Lattice when your character's super powerful. There's also a number of challenges that require you to do essences, including essences with multiple Arch Nemesis mods, and that's going to be pretty crazy. Patrick's got a really good comment in chat there that Abyss is a great place to farm bases to then use as part of your harvest strategy later. I think that makes a lot of sense too. So you're suggesting spec Abyss early in the league, then unspec it in favour of specking Harvest in the middle of the league, and, well, middle of the league, like a few days in, like a few days after you've hit tier 16 maps. That makes a lot of sense there too. So yeah, essences were already some of the more dangerous content in the game, but I think that it is still fine to just one essence monster in 50 to run away from it. That's going to happen because the new Arch Nemesis monsters, just the fact that essences scale up monster stats so much, it's perfectly fine to just occasionally run away from them, especially very early in the league and especially in hardcore. But I think that the rewards for essences are just so high that they feel mandatory. Crystal Lattice being the weakest of them. Amplified Energies being one of the strongest mods on the entire Atlas. Prolific Essence. The thing with Essence that makes it so nuts is that everything multiplies together. So Prolific Essence adds an essence to every map. Amplified Energies literally triples the loot from all of your non-corrupt essences. Crystal Lattice is an additive multiplier, and Crystal Resonance is a doubling multiplier to certain essences. It's not to all of them. A good question there. How exactly do essences scale the monsters? Essences appear to have a multiplying factor. Each essence has a multiplicative factor on the hit points of the monster. And I think... let's just jump over to POE and check that. So let's just do a Deafening Essence of Dread. Deafening Essence of Dread. I think you can get the essence modifiers. Is that it? No, it's not that. I think there's some info on this somewhere. Is there... I think there's info on this at somewhere at least. Let's just jump over to the wiki and see if we can find that info. I have seen a table of what it does to monsters, but I don't see it here. No, I can't find it on the POE so far. Elva has not. That comes up under Incursion, the way that GGG order them. So it's I would have called it A for Elva, but GGG call it I for Incursion, so we haven't got there yet. So yeah, unfortunately I can't confirm any of the details as to what the essences do, just that they are substantial. They are a big boost to the monster's core stats, and it also seems like Arch Nemesis will have a stacking big boost to those stats. So Expedition is next. This is some of the most powerful support for a mechanic on the tree. This is not being changed, and people probably already know this, but Buried Knowledge is extremely strong. Hunt for Answers less so. But still, I mean, in a world where Expedition Scarabs exist, then this is less important, but it's still really solid. Buried Knowledge is amazing. Ancient Writings is solid. Distinguished Demolitionist is one of the most powerful nodes on the entire passive tree, +1 explosive and 35% radius, which is huge. And then, yeah, all of this combination together makes Expedition really powerful if you're familiar with the mechanics. The key thing with Expedition you need is a bit of a sense as to how to use ROG. I made a video earlier this week about the nerfs to ROG that are contained in the patch notes and why I don't think they're that big a deal. They are real, but they're not substantial. There's also a whole bunch of stuff with Gwenin that's in there. Oh, well, there's a whole lot of stuff you can do with Gwenin, chasing down specific unique items early. It looks like it could be really lucrative. Expedition's still a really good package on the tree. You don't need the Hunt for Answers cluster, but you can take it if you want it. The rest of it, you probably want to take everything. Even though Ancient Writings isn't great, it's still fine. Harbingers are something that are... does the Grand Design Keystone increase Expedition pack size? I'll need to come up with that one. I'll need to check that when we get to Grand Design, I think. A good point's being raised there that someone's saying that they find Expedition really not enjoyable. I don't think that Expedition is like Essences in the sense that it's so strong that you have to spec into it. Otherwise, you just are hopelessly behind where you'd be if you didn't. Expedition is something that is more discretionary. You can say, okay, I don't like this mechanic, I'm just going to skip it, and you won't be missing out on too much. I mean, you'll be missing out on things, but you can do other things with your time. Essences, you're missing out on a huge amount of wealth if you do that, so I don't think you can justify doing that for Essences. FS Forward Sound is asking, do Essence Monster mods count as 5 mod rare monsters? I think the answer is no. I think 5 mod means 5 Arch Nemesis mods, which appears to require an Atlas Keystone we'll get to, or potentially whatever has replaced the old Nemesis mod on maps that could roll. Yeah, one of the other things, Expedition mechanics can be very dangerous as well. A lot of the monsters are super tanky and do some devastating ailments. And there's also a bunch of messing around to make sure that you don't blow up the wrong remnant. So if you don't find that fun, you can definitely miss it. You can definitely block this and not miss a huge amount. Just make sure that you do sell your Expedition Scarabs. Expedition Scarabs, because Expedition is quite lucrative, people like buying the Scarabs for it. So just keep that in mind. You can probably sell your rusted Expedition Scarabs in semi-bulk for 5 to 10 chaos in the middle of the league. Shane's asking, do I get restless sleeping the night before a league? I always sleep badly at league start because of that. It's so it's such a busy period for content creators. Like, it's, you know, you have actually the busiest week is often the week before league start, and then you have league start itself, which goes a little bit crazy. Hey, thanks, Cody. Harbinger nodes I know a lot less about. I didn't take them this league, and I've heard very mixed reports about them. So that's really all I can say here, is that it's all over the place. Harbinger stuff is all over the place in power, and I really don't know what to say on all of this. I've heard people swear by it, I've heard people swear at it, and I'm just not sure whether it's mediocre, amazing, or bad. But I think it's in the sort of slightly above mediocre range, maybe a little bit weaker than Abyss support on the tree. Alexander's asking, if you don't like running Heist, do you think it's worth taking the nodes? I think there's a couple of Heist nodes that are just good because they generally increase the amount of loot you get while you're mapping, and you might want to consider them, but they're not essential. They're things you can take that are reasonable. And there's a couple of good points about Harbinger being a good option because it's something that's sort of low effort. I don't like the way that Harbinger makes you stay in one place. That's the reason I haven't done it. But yeah, some people like it. And another point that's worth mentioning is that for solo self-found, Orbs of Annulment are very rare, but Orbs of Annulment come from Harbingers quite a bit. So that is definitely a very serious way that you can use this. So yeah, it seems like opinions are all over the place, and I think given how all over the place opinions are, I'm just going to say for Harbinger, consider it to be a discretionary one. Spec it if you like the content, don't spec it if you don't like the content. It's not like Essence where you have to take it, or else you're just objectively wrong. It also does drop, Ancient Orbs as well. That's something to keep in mind. Ancient Orbs will be in hot demand because, again, Mage Blood. Mage Blood very popular for some funny reason. And also you've got Headhunter as a chance to fail with style when you try to get a Mage Blood with a belt. Harvest comes up next, and Harvest, I think, no matter what your opinion is of running Harvest, like whether you find it's fun, whether you find it's really jarring, you're probably going to want to take Harvest because of the challenges this league. Now, this only really applies to people who are going for at least 38 challenges. Otherwise, you're going to just skip the Harvest one. But there is a challenge to harvest the Heart of the Grove. There is a challenge to defeat a Harvest boss. There is a challenge to do 7 harvests in one map. This is something that is going to be very, very, very difficult to get, this challenge. And as a result, I would suggest that you take Harvest very early on. Harvest also synergizes incredibly well with Delirium. So if you're running a Delirium strategy, then forcing Harvest or getting Harvest on a map means that you have a room where that you can go into that the fog will will not move while you're in there. So you can spend as long as you want in the harvest room. You can rest and recover if you just need to, calm your nerves after a near death to Kosis or something like that. Then you can just calm down, slowly and surely kill the monsters in the harvest while they're delirious, and then you can go back on. And also, it just adds, because it adds so many monsters, it will also give you a lot of extra delirium juice as well. So harvest and delirium synergize incredibly, incredibly, incredibly well. I am shocked at what Swan's saying there, that getting exactly one Exalted Orb from Harbingers, being expecting to Harbingers for 75% of the league. I'm really surprised by that. Like, the number of Exalt shards that I get just from Heist, like, they add up over time. Exalt shards from other content as well. Like, I'm really surprised that you weren't getting a lot of them. Oh, you've made multiple through the shards. Yeah. The shards should add up. Like, you should get a lot of them. One raw Exalt. Okay, yeah, no, that's fine then. If that's the case, then that's a different matter. If you're getting a whole bunch of shards do add up. Exalt shards are something that you'll get quite a few of over time. Harbinger does add to the delirium counter, but Harbinger has a problem of not pause. Like, various mechanics pause the delirium timer by different amounts. Harvest is really good because it has the most extreme pause of all. All the time you're in the Harvest Grove, the delirium mirror is paused. Whereas a bunch of other mechanics, it pauses for a little period of time. Like, if you kill a red beast, you get a couple of seconds pause. If you complete an abyss, not just complete the entire abyss, but just complete one node of an abyss, you get a bunch there. All sorts of stuff like that. So yeah, that's where I think Harvest is one of the best synergies with Delirium, and it's less so. Like, there's less synergy with the Harbingers because I don't think they delay it all that much. I would be wrong on that front, though. So Heart of the Grove is pretty much essential for a challenge, as is Bumper Crop. You probably need both of these, and you probably need both of them allocated for a lot of maps in order to get that challenge done. Then, as well as that, you may wish to consider taking Bountiful Harvest and all the small stuff, and of course Call of the Grove is very strong as well. The Harvest support on the tree is significant, and Harvest is definitely one of the most powerful Trade League mechanics. Most of the time you're not going to get the rare crafts. I didn't see a single augment this league, unless you count the one that just mimics an Exalted Orb, so, like the not really an augment one. I did get that, but I didn't get any genuine augments. I did get a 5-way fracture, so that was a lucky craft. But most of the time, you won't get any lucky crafts, but you will get a lot of small stuff that's sellable for 30, 50, 100 chaos. Things like re-roll an item, reforge an item, keeping all prefixes, reforge an item, most likely to get the same mods back. These things are worth quite a bit in the sorts of numbers you'll get. And would I suggest Harvest if you're banned from Forbidden Trove? It depends if you can still do it yourself, or you can do it on there is a competitor to Forbidden Trove, the POE Services Discord, so you can definitely do that. Don't take Call of the Grove if you're going to be using Harvest on the map device a lot, but you don't necessarily apply a Kirak mod to every map that you run. So, what would I recommend to new players as being asked on the Harvest stuff? I would say for the moment, don't bother with Harvest until you feel you have a moderate degree of understanding of crafting in the game. And that's like, you don't need to be an absolute expert in every use, and it's fine it is fine to not recognize some of the mediocre crafts, but that have uses, that is. But you do want to have a bit of a sense that you recognize every jackpot craft that comes up, if you get one, and you also want to recognize some of the uses of the most common of the good crafts. And a question on how do you get 15 slots for horticrafting? The way you get 15 is by killing the boss Ashabi at least once. To get access to Ashabi is very rare. You need to get a Sacred Blossom, which is either a percentage chance or, in conjunction with Heart of the Grove, is 100% chance from Harvest bosses, but Harvest bosses are rare. Harvest indeed, DJ POE is saying, may be extremely rippy with the new Arch Nemesis mods. DJ POE is definitely right on that. Harvest has always been rippy, and it's probably going to get worse, especially if you get something mean. Like if you get something horrible come up, like the Mana Drain or Temporal Bubble, or any of the really scary ones, then you're going to get something really terrifying happen with Harvest there. So yeah, expect that there'll be a lot of deaths in the Heart of the Grove. In the Harvest Grove, there'll be a lot of them. Okay, so Heist. Heist has a lot of good stuff for general mapping. All of the Heist support on the tree is not stuff that makes Heist more lucrative. It's stuff that makes you get loot that is Heist relevant. And even if you have no intention of going to the Rogue Harbour, these are worth seriously considering. These are good things. And especially if you're... it's more so if you're going to run Heist, because then it can save trading. But smuggling routes... Basically, these bounty target packs drop 1,500 to 3,000 rogue markers every time, and that's pretty good for a 4-pointer. This is something that is a lot of extra currency to get 1 in 10 maps. This is something that is very good until you reach a certain point in juicing where you no longer care about getting a 6 or 7 chaos drop. But until that point, every time smuggling routes procs, it's going to be 6 or 7 chaos when it goes off. Sometimes you'll get depending on the market for rogue markers, it could even be 10 or 12 chaos. In which case, this package is giving you a boss on the map that's weaker than a map boss, and that's giving you pretty much 12 chaos every time it comes up. Really good stuff if it comes up. Do the item quantity nodes affect drops from smugglers' caches? I believe they do, but I do not know that I'm right. So I could be wrong on that front. So smuggling routes is the as I say, it's the high stuff near the top. That one is just good money, but this is a mapping node. This is not a I want to run heist node. This is a I want a little bit of extra loot on 1 in 10 of my maps. Contracts from smuggling routes are a non-event. Like, yeah, they drop sometimes, but you're doing it for the coins. If you get a contract, bonus. Well, if it's deception, bonus. If it's not deception, who cares? But if it's deception, bonus. Casing the Joint is next. This one is best in conjunction with Secret Stash. So you probably want both of these together. But smugglers' caches have 100% increased chance to drop blueprints. I believe this is an increase from 10% to 20%. And each blueprint you get tends to average 25 chaos. So that's a couple of chaos every time you get a smuggler's cache. That's worth having. 10% chance to be fully revealed is both a blessing and a curse. I mean, it's always a blessing, but it has a bit of a drawback to it in that it's quite hard to sell these things for full value. If you get a fully revealed blueprint, they are often like, to someone that knows how to look for it, they'll be willing to pay an Exalt or more for it usually. But 1, this doesn't happen very often, and 2, a lot of players don't know how to look for them, and it's hard to just find them at a glance, so you wind up with these expensive blueprints that are easily missed. Casing the Joint is pretty solid if you are running a fast mapping strategy, and also it's skippable. So it's something that you can take or not take. It's not really something that is important if you're a heister. It's something that's just a loot multiplier on your it's just a loot multiplier. Okay, so FS is pointing out that there's been a change to blueprint multiplication. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Does that actually matter? No, I'm just trying to think if there's a way that there's a difference between increased and more there. That probably only matters. That's probably just a clarification that you can't get 2 blueprints from a smuggler's cache. I think that may be the intention there. Yeah, getting fully revealed blueprints is definitely rare, but you know, it's a chance to get extra Exalt tier drops on your maps, but it is a low chance. I think that Casing the Joint is simultaneously a good node, but a skippable node. So I would say take it if and only if you understand the heist market well. Whether you're running heist or not yourself, it's something to take if and only if you know the heist market well and you're fine with with trying to price blueprints. If you don't have experience selling blueprints, then just skip Casing the Joint. But maybe you can take Secret Stash. Secret Stash is still fine. It's like, 4% chance to get a Smuggler's Cache, which is generally worth an Exalt Shard. So Smuggler's Caches here, this is essential in one situation. If you are intending to rush the twins and trying to do the twins very early in a trade league, or alternately, if you're in SSF and you're wanting to do the twins at all, then in that case, you're going to want to allocate Secret Stash so that you get all those stupid quest contracts done. I call them stupid and I like heist. They're just such an annoying chore and you just got to get them out of the way at some point. But they are prerequisites for the twins dropping. You need to do the one that is a quest to steal O Fortuna. That's the one that starts the chain that leads to the twins. There's also the other ones, which are probably only relevant if you're in SSF. So if you want, say, Apex mode or Nadir mode, then you're going to need to do the Breaking the Unbreakable quests. If you're wanting to do Nashta's Spear, then I think that's the Fledgling is the one that is the unique that drops from Nashta's Spear. Then you can do that. There's a whole bunch of things you can do. Secret Stash is fantastic if you want to get heist unique contracts quicker. If you don't care about heist unique contracts, then it's just an extra loot boost on your maps. It's middling tier. It's okay, but it's not something that you would jump out as saying this is fantastic. FS points out quest contracts are good for leveling up your rogues. You know what's even better for leveling up your rogues? Trading for a low tier blueprint. When I say low tier, I mean like tier 1 map equivalent or something like that, like monster levels 65 to 72, that sort of range. They will have low requirements for rogue levels, and you can then just go and do that and get three of your rogues in each wing will get a big boost to their XP. You do a couple of those blueprints and you're going to be level 4 for everyone. And once you're level 4 for everyone, you can run almost all the heists you want to run. The small number you can't run, you just have to sit them until last, and then you'll do them and you'll get them. So yeah, the heist support on the tree is pretty reasonable, and it's all stuff that is best on a high movement speed mapper. Not so much on a heist character, because when you're in heist, these don't do anything for you. So that's just worth keeping in mind that these are for mapping and just for getting more loot when you're mapping. I would unspec a lot of these when you start doing very juiced content, if you get there, partly because there comes a point where getting 1% more pack size is better than getting an Exalt Shard in every 20th map. Next up is Incursion. So Incursion, I don't think anything has changed in. I want to just quickly confirm that. So I won't go into all the details through this again. No, nothing's changed in Incursion, I believe. So this is pretty strong. And Sean's got a really good point there that Stream of Consciousness and blocking, you could get Smuggler's Caches on nearly half your maps. I really want to think on that when we get to Stream of Consciousness, because that might just be something worth doing. Although that comes at a huge cost, doesn't it? You're doing that, you're going to be really paying a lot for it in terms of losing out on juicing of maps in exchange for getting that. That'd be a very much a blitz to the boss strategy. Blitz to the boss on a map that if there is a Smuggler's Cache, you'll see it. So Strand type maps. You'd be like, oh yeah, we'll blitz the boss and then we'll get that. So everything's the same for Incursion, and the support is still pretty good. Early on, I think nowhere near enough people were taking Artifacts of the Vaal early to get those Incursion mod items really early on. This is really strong if you're wanting to take an item and then upgrade it with benchcrafts. If you get like the best 10% of Incursion modded items can be quite good. Mr. Melt asks, did Eldritch Implicits lower the value of double corrupt temples? No, they didn't, because most people don't double corrupt rares. They double corrupt unique items instead. What impacts it is how common the items that are best for double corruption end up being. And so it was Crystallized Omniscience was probably the best item to double corrupt in 3.17. Crystallized Omniscience is getting made rarer, potentially, so that may be something that makes the double corrupt temples worth a little bit less, but there's still stuff like Call of the Brotherhood that people will always want to double corrupt. So Incursion items, yeah, the other thing with these is that you have the, and this just come up in chat as well, that recombinators do some obscene stuff with these. So just to take an example, if you have a recombinator for armor, and you have a Gwaltleetsi's chest piece, so that's the life mod, and you have a Gravicious drop. So Gravicious drops a veiled item, and you unveil it and you've got 14% of life added as extra ES. Like, those two mods, if you can get them together with the Recombinator, you have something monstrous already. Like, for a pure defense chest, that is looking like it could be really strong. And that's just a starting point. You can then further craft it after that. I think for that reason that the Elva stuff is looking a bit better than it's been in the past. So that's really solid. Do I think it's worth picking Incursion nodes when Delirium map mirror reducing? Yes. Incursion is the best of the masters for Delirium mirror reducing. And so having extra monsters in your incursions, like particularly time dilation. Time dilation is essential. You probably want the perpetual search as well, because otherwise you're not going to be able to sustain Elva missions. Vaal Oligarchs and Artifacts of the Vaal are much less important, although Artifacts of the Vaal has Master Mission Replenish in it, so you probably want it for that reason as well. So based on that, yeah, you may as well take everything. I would say take the entirety of the Incursion support, take the entirety of the Delirium Mirror support, and then you can probably take... I think that, yeah, like a bunch of the other in-map events are worth taking as well. Yeah, 100% increased defenses on a Vaal Regalia is another thing that's being mentioned. There are just so many things you can do that are nuts. I'm not that impressed with the No Fragments Keystone Zanzibar, except very early on in the league. Early in the league, yep, take it. But once you start getting a big pile of Scarabs lined up, you want to ditch it, I think. Oh, and then we have contested development and resource reallocation. So this is the thing that juices up the temple itself. These are not required for a Delirium strategy, although 5% pack size times 3 is maybe worthwhile, and also it's just an extra bonus. So you could consider this, but it's not essential. Now, next up we've got the Kirak stuff. FS Raise is a good thing while we're on the topic of recombinators. Annulling down to 1 mod rares are something really significant, and I think people will make some serious experiments with that, and I'm definitely intending to annul down to 1 mod rares a bit. Chuck Sieg, what's the +1/+1 method you're talking about? The one that I was using required augments. But, well, I don't think you don't need require augments for chaos from memory, but I'd have to look into that a bit. But I am curious to know the strategy you're talking about. Paragon, there's a couple of little changes. A couple of things have been nerfed, like Cirrus, for instance. Cirrus's chance to drop an Awakening Gem is gone. That's now only in the Uber Cirrus encounter, but that wasn't a big thing. That wasn't a big change. Creeping Frost Inquisitor is amazing. Jung Rowan has been playing with it on his stream a bit, Zambi, and it looks really good. He's critically strike focused, so it's focusing only on the hit component of the Inquisitor, and that was really solid. Oh, of course, DJ POE, you're right, yeah, Recombinator. We'll have to see how rare Recombinators are. But yeah, Crystallized Omniscience is utterly broken, and renders, honestly, +1/+1 amulets worthless in comparison. Like, the difference between Crystallized Omniscience and a +2 amulet is bigger than the difference between a +2 amulet and a Scoured amulet. So yeah, the method you're talking about with recombinators, yeah. No, recombinators, we'll have to see how rare recombinators are and what their best use cases are. But yeah, +1s being merged together with it will definitely happen. We'll have to see how that works. So the Kirak stuff, very early in progression, I like Kirak a lot. So things like Planar Tactician can help you get a whole bunch of weird and wonderful maps done, and that can really help you get started with your Atlas progression. Broadly speaking, I would advise that once you have 4 Void Stones, which might not be quick, once you get that, you unspec everything from the Kirak section. But They are very good until that point. They'll help you get your first 90, even 100, even 110 of your Atlas passives. And so they're a really good starting point, but they are something to respec out of. So think of them as being like helping a Lyra in the campaign. Helps you out early on, and then often you'll want to respec out of it, but maybe occasionally you won't. 1% chance to get an additional Kirak mission on completion is really good early on. This really helps turbocharge your Atlas progression. Every Kirak mission you get is probably going to be a map you haven't completed yet, and on top of that, it's also going to reset Kirak's store. Kirak's store also resets every now and again as you start doing more and more of the Atlas. So you get a whole lot of extra boosts here, and it'll be a big deal. Zanzibar's asking, do I think as late as 4 Watchstones? 4 Voidstones. You can do it earlier if you want. Just get rid of them once you feel you've got a large stock of high tier maps saved up. At that point, you can say, all right, even if I get unlucky, I don't really care. I've got them. I'm fine. Now, Kirak has Commissioned Officer. This is the single best node for more casual players on the Atlas because it doubles your Kirak mission income daily. For a power gamer, this does very little. Probably you are only going to care about the Kirak missions for maybe 2 or 3 days. However, for a casual gamer that might take, say, 15 days to get to the point of doing Eternal Labyrinth, this can mean that if they just log on a couple of times, if they log on most days, when they do start getting into yellow and red tier maps, then they're going to have a dozen or more. They're going to have like potentially even 24 Kirak missions all banked up. And that's going to make things a lot easier for getting all of the different maps across the breadth of the Atlas. So that's the purpose of this node, Commissioned Officer. If you're a power gamer, you can probably either spec it just to get the 3% chance and then unspec later, or just completely ignore it. But if you're a more casual player, then this is fantastic and this is for you. And I would say that that's definitely worth keeping in mind. Congrats on the Replica Shroud. Ain't nothing juice. Ain't nothing nice. Good one. Good pull. Good pull. Am I eliminating any previous league mechanics early? Probably no. And yeah, if you're already close to Commissioned Officer, then yeah, take it early for the 3% chance to get a Kirak mission. Kirak missions are not that strong for endgame, like once you're solid endgame, because they don't inherit your Atlas. So at some point, you're just going to want to say, I don't care about my Kirak missions unless it's a Cortex. And even then, the Cortex is only good for getting a Bottled Faith, like a chance at a Bottled Faith. That's pretty much it. Maybe you'll do a synthesis map and stuff like that, but they're pretty underwhelming at that point. You can do them for harvest, I guess, too. But then again, you got harvest on the map device, and when you get a harvest on the map device, it's going to be better because it's going to have your Atlas skill tree in effect. Expect the unexpected. I am disappointed by. This does not seem very good. Delirious scouting reports are cool. Otherworldly scouting reports are cool. Blighted scouting reports feel underwhelming, and ultimately, as a whole package, the percentage chance is too low. Scouting reports don't drop that much. Just not that impressed. Expert reconnaissance, also not that impressed. The combination of the two, also not that impressed. I don't think that there's much benefit to taking these, unless you want to have, unless you want to pick up all the small nodes for 1% chance to get an extra Kirak mission as well. And then in that case, they can be quite close to it. If they're quite close to something, then you can take it there. Chuck Steeg is asking me to just do the intro. Oh, howdy, all. Grab yourself a drink. It is time for some Path of Exile discussion. And, okay, so Solidarity, is also pretty similar. It's the one that gives you... What's the operative scouting report again? I'm just trying to remember that thing. Those things I haven't seen in so long. I think it'll tell me if I look at it up here. So Kirak missions will have that's the one over on the right hand side, isn't it? Solidarity is implicits. Yeah, I'm not impressed with those. I tried them out and wasn't impressed with them, so I don't think that's particularly strong. I need to take a very quick AFK here. I'm just going to be away from the PC for maybe 45 seconds. Just need to talk to someone IRL. Alrighty, sorry about that. I just needed to quickly talk to someone in the real world, so just had to do that quickly in the background. So I did indeed. I had to AFK quickly. I just needed to talk to someone, but I am back. I am back. I am back. So, have I started my league start plans yet? No, I have not really, Kyle. That is something I will be doing a little bit more thinking on. I did do a test run of the early acts with Absolution, and I'm thinking I'll go that way, then spec into Arakali's Fang when I can. Pagan's asking, real world, which act is that in? But, yeah. So, Labyrinth, Trial of Glory is actually going to be surprisingly good this league, I think, because there's a challenge that can be sped up by doing the Gift of the Goddess labs. So there'll be a lot of demand for Gift of the Goddess by people doing endgame grinds. And also they're enriched labs keys may be worth something early on. This is not something that's a must take or anything like it, but it's not terrible either. Our Seismic Trap is still strong, Mr. Jacol. It and Explosive Trap are probably the best trappers at the moment. And Fire Trap DOT focus as well can be quite good. Although the builds that do the best with Fire Trap DOT focus tend to be Righteous Fire builds. Legion support has been pretty good in 3.17, but only for certain builds. If your build is good against Legion, then nothing has changed. All the Legion stuff on the tree is good. And you can just be quite happy with all of the Legion specking. You will want to take the Marraketh Legion chance here, but you probably don't want to take anything else. Maybe you'll take the Templar Legion chance as well. You do not want to take the other ones from that family. So Vaal Legion chance and Karui Legion chance and Eternal Legion. You want to just take Marraketh and Templar, even though the Vaal one will give you plus 1% Legion encounter. It will end up sabotaging you by reducing your chances of getting Marraketh Legions overall. No Legion on map device, but you do have the ability to use Scarabs, and Scarabs are everywhere, so you should be fine with that. Everything else in Legion is fine. I think it's all exactly the same. Map bosses are next. They have increased chances to drop unique and faded unique items. I don't think that faded unique items are rare enough in trade to care about this. In SSF, you might need to take this if you wanted to use, say, a Frostferno. Then you probably want to take Faded Conflict and just keep it there until you've got at least one Frostferno, maybe a few, so that you can double corrupt them. But if you're not wanting to use Frostferno or Malachai's Simula, is it? Or no, Malachai's Awakening is the upgraded version. Then you probably don't care and you can skip Faded Conflict entirely. This one isn't very good. Enriched Entities, giving 20% chance for maps to be twinned and also an additional basic currency item, is middle tier but is in a terrible spot on the Atlas. So I think that that's something that's a fair bit weaker. I'm not sure what happened with your message there, Mr. Jacol. I've got light auto mod on, so I actually can't see the message that got nuked by the auto mod there. I think that the emblem situation, yeah, emblems will go down in price a little bit because 5-ways will be a lot worse. Is anything nerfed is being asked there. There's a couple of little things that are being changed around the edges, but nothing major. None of the stuff that seems to be deliberate nerfs. There's a couple of things where like say Cirrus lost Awakened Gem support because that's been rolled into the Uber Cirrus version. Oh, you retracted it. Okay, cool. I thought that it may have been eaten by the auto mod. So that's the way it works. Question there on, do I have any recommended tools to help learn better pathing through the axe? If you're already a 5 to 6 hour player through the axe, then you should watch Tai Killer. If you are not that experienced, I think this will be most players, then you should watch Zizran. Zizran runs through the axe with full commentary at what for him is a medium pace, but for most players is faster than they're capable of. And Tai Killer does them at blinding speed without much commentary. So that's really worthwhile having a look at what they do, and that'll give you a real sense for stuff that can be done faster. Oh, you're saying there that Sean's pointing out, because I didn't take enriched entities, I just assumed that map bosses dropping an additional basic currency item would be for every monster, but it's not. It's just for just one per boss. In that case, no, that's not worth taking. That's not worth taking at all. Now for the maps, the shaping mods there's been a change to shaping the seas, which is going away from a bias towards getting your favorited maps, which is now available somewhere else on the Atlas, and instead as 3% chance to have a special implicit. These are just all things you probably want to take early and then unspec out of late. The difference is shaping the valleys. The one that boosts Fortune Favors the Brave. This was something that is really good. This is something people didn't pick up on until the middle of last league, but 10% quantity, 10% pack size is a big deal. Big deal. And it makes Fortune Favors the Brave actually worth using. So that's something to keep in mind as a very real option. Fortune Favors the Brave is especially good if you are able to make some use out of most of the different Kirak mods. You also get chances for maps to be a tier higher as well, which is significant as well. That's really good to know, Derek. That is worthwhile knowing, that if there's an 8-hour walkthrough, that's something that most players who have done the campaign 5 or 6 times, 8 hours is the sort of speed that they'll play it at. So being able to watch it whilst that's going is really good. Zizaran's 4.25 hour race run during the Betrayal League. It's quite old now, and it uses skills that don't work for racing anymore. But he did a really good one with a voiceover back then that was fantastic. The Gull will be really good early on. Yeah. The Gull will be really good early on. Always is, especially if you spec shrines. So Metamorph has pretty bad support on the tree, in my opinion. Broadly speaking, if you like Metamorphs, your best way to engage with them is probably going to be through the use of Scarabs. Escaped Experiment is very rippy, and you should never take this never take this in hardcore, except for tier 1 maps when you are wanting to do challenges that involve it, because there is a challenge to do a rogue Metamorph that you'd have to do you have to bring this one for hardcore for that, but only just you do that in tier 1 scoured maps. In general endgame play, this is extremely dangerous. You can definitely do it. Just expect that you'll have some deaths to it. Escaped Experiment will just put some brutal monsters on maps, and they'll have abilities you would never have put onto a Metamorph. Things like giving Salangzarang suppressing fire to a Metamorph will just obliterate you. So just be aware, Escaped Experiment, super deadly. Intrinsic Darkness is underwhelming, especially with how cheap Metamorph Scarabs tend to be. Fine Specimens is super deadly. And again, you can make your own judgment whether it's worth taking the extra deaths to it. This will definitely get you killed, and 150% more life has historically meant that sometimes you can't kill the things because they've got life regen. Now, life regen mod on rare monsters is being replaced by Consecrator now, and Consecrator might be rarer, so we'll have to find out how that comes up. But this is going to be pretty dangerous. What's your first league start ever? Is it AB? Definitely a good time for it. I'm much more focused. This stream will be focused more on people that have got a lot of experience hitting, say, level 75 and up in the past. I mean, you can still pick things up out of it, but I would say, if you look, what's a good spot for general directions? I mean, if you want general directions, yeah, just start with your favorite content. Like, just experiment with your favorite content to start with. And once you've found out what you really like, then discuss an Atlas tree around that. That's my suggestion. Douglas has got an interesting point that a lot of people may well drop off the Metamorph because it potentially be harder with Arch Nemesis mods, and therefore that may make it so that there's an increase in the price of catalysts. I disagree, and the reason I disagree is that Heist drops a lot of catalysts too. And in fact, Heist... at least in my experience, I've probably looted more catalysts from Heist than I have from Metamorphs, and so I'm not sure that it'll have that much of an impact. Even though, maybe it will. I guess it's not popular. It's not popular Heist contracts that drop them. So we'll see. When we say Ziz, talking about the streamer by the name of Zizaran, that is Zizaran. I think. Yeah, Zizaran. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, you'll get some pretty crazy stuff. Badger is another good example for early game stuff. Badger is This Is Badger is his name on both YouTube and Twitch. Metamorph Organ Donor, however, is one of the better ones. Metamorph bosses that drop an itemized sample drop an additional one. This is genuinely really good. This upgrades a rusted scarab to a polished scarab, but it makes polished scarabs even better. And Organ Donor is the one thing that is genuinely a good degree of support for Metamorph on the tree. Everything else is pretty underwhelming, but Organ Donor is pretty good. Replicated results tends to be underwhelming in my experience. I've used this in the past. I've never been happy with it. Metamorph, I would assume, will have the new rare mods on it because they've got rare mods at the moment. They'll have quite a few of them, most likely. Rare monsters. This stuff is being changed a little bit. So rare monsters have a chance to drop basic currency and rare jewelry. The numbers on this are too low, but you do have the rest of the cluster granting additional rare monsters, which is just extra XP, and so maybe worth doing. Note that by virtue of duplicating the rare monsters, this is actually strictly worse than adding a new one for headhunter uses. So if you've got a headhunter, a duplicated rare monster doesn't actually do much for you because you're going to get the same mods from both of them. Whereas if it was a different rare monster, then that would be better. All the ritual support on the tree is great. If you like ritual, then spec everything and you'll be happy with it. On the flip side, if you don't like ritual, then don't spec any of it and maybe even seal it because ritual takes a lot of time in each map. It is pretty lucrative, but it's also very skippable. And there's only a couple of items that only come from ritual, and most builds currently don't really want them. Just checking if there's any way to get +1 levels on this because there hasn't been the last couple of times. And nothing has changed. So there is still no way to get item level 84, 85, or 86 Blizzard Crowns. Rogue Exiles. Rogue Exiles you may want to spec into just for the purposes of getting your challenges done. There is a challenge to defeat every Rogue Exile in the game while it's possessed, and that is one that you may wish to take. So that's going to be something that's really significant. Yes, the Archive, yes, you can block a mechanic and get Scarabs. So Scarabs will still be able to spawn that mod. That's been confirmed. So yeah, all Rogue Exile support, basically Rogue Trader is marginal, pretty marginal. It's okay, it's not terrible. Royal Guard is marginal, but Exiled Will and Ruckus are something you're going to want to take for a period at the start of the league until you've completed that challenge. Once you've completed the challenge, you're done. You unspec that. I don't think it's that important to have. This is going to be super dangerous when it goes off. And 20 Rogue Exiles, all of which are possessed, is going to be super dangerous. The Scarab Cluster is next. I thought this was really good when I first looked at it, and then the more I played with it, the less impressed I was. The more heavily you're juicing your maps, the less significant a 100 chaos cost for Scarabs is, and a 10% chance to not consume your Scarabs, so it's an average of 10C a map. That's a big deal, except that once you're at that level of juicing, it's not, and you could probably do better by actually adding another cluster onto the tree. I'm not all that impressed with the Scarab Cluster. It's not terrible, but I just don't think it's great value for points. I think you can do better. And that's my feeling on this so far. Sextants, on the other hand, Enduring Influence, I just leave this spec'd all the time. Once you have access to 4 of the Void Stones, this is so powerful that you don't want to have to mess around with forgetting to respawn it. I think you just want to leave this on all the time. That's annoying. It is just a 5-point tax, but it just feels like it's essential. Next we have shrines. Your maps contain an additional shrine. This is actually better than it sounds because every shrine has a big pack around it. Supplication is a perfectly fine mod on its own. If you're using the unique helmet, the Gull, it is even better. And so just a quick reminder of the Gull, because many of you won't have remembered this. It's a tier 5 rarity unique, so it drops all the time. It's a unique Raven Mask, and trigger level 1, create lesser shrine when you kill an enemy. This is on a 45-second cooldown, so basically once per 45 seconds. It's got reasonable base stats, some cold resistance, some life, some energy shield, and some evasion as well. And then 75% increased effective shrine buffs on you, 50% increased duration of shrine buffs on you. All this is really good. Basically, the shrine stuff support is really good. You also get more duration from this. The whole package is really good. The Gull is a fantastic item. Then you have Shrines Drawn to Power, 50% chance to get an extra pack. That is solid. And also that they have a minimum of 1 pack. Syncretism, 30% increased effective shrine buffs only on players. And shrines in your map grant an additional random shrine effect is fantastic. Like, all of this stuff really adds a lot. And then you have All That Glitters. This grants a 10% chance for them to be covered as shrines. This is necessary for at least one of the challenges. So I think the shrine section, you want to spec this early. You want to spec this and wear the Gull early in the league. Once you have all of the coveted shrine challenges done, at that point, maybe consider unspecking this stuff, especially if you don't like the shrines. But I think they're still fine to keep. They do add a lot to your maps. How do I like to balance doing heist with early Atlas completion? This is a very difficult choice, and ultimately, I tend... this is one of the reasons I'm taking a break from heist in week 1 of this league. I'm just going to go, I like heist, but I want to take a break from it. I would say that probably the best way is push your Atlas first. Take a step out to do heist if your character's weak, then do the down level strategy in your 60s, and that's perfectly fine. Do that for a little bit, but only do it long enough that your character feels like it's capable of mapping quickly, and then get into those maps quickly. That's my suggestion at the moment. That's something that will have to be tested out, though, in practice. Strongboxes. So low tier operative strongboxes were nerfed in 3.18. Low tier ones, so white tier, will no longer be able to do anything except rusted scarabs, and only red tier will be able to give gilded and winged. That's what I believe was the change, but they're still excellent. And given that you probably spend most of your time in red maps, they're still going to be fantastic. Vaal Temple is incredibly good with secret operations because it seems like the Vaal Temple special chests can also be turned into operative strongboxes. Tamper-proof is great for speeding things up. It's also very rippy. So just be aware that you probably want to have an instant teleport move skill before taking tamper-proof. Otherwise, Ice Nova will make you go splat. Twice Tempted is amazing, and really the strongbox support remains good. Nothing here appears to have been nerfed except for the aforementioned nerfs to the mods on the secret operations strongboxes. Everything here looks good, and now we've got the things that people were saying were changed around a little bit. So the wording has been changed here. Maps contained in strongboxes in your maps are duplicated. I don't think that's any different to the current functionality. It used to be strongboxes in your maps contain duplicated maps. I don't think that means anything different. I think that's still the same. What am I league starting? I'm going to league start Absolution until I'm in maps, and then I'm going to respec into either Arakali's Fang, if that's something I can afford days 1 or 2, or potentially Skeleton Mages. Got a doubled Fiend, that's nice. That's a good one. Yes, Samuel, it already is. Like, I think with YouTube streams, unless I turn them off, they are permanently available to watch. So yeah, I think that's all the same. Synthesis is next, and this all looks the same as well. All sorts of good stuff. If you're like, it's interesting. Part of the synthesis support is actually a boost to the drops from map bosses. So the 0.5% chance to get a synth map from map bosses that you get 3 of. That sort of adds up. That's a bit less valuable than it was in the past because of the divination card that was added last patch. So there's a divination card for these synth maps that comes from Conquerors of the Atlas and is very common. So that has actually devalued this cluster, but it's still pretty solid stuff. Synaptic Impulses is very, very dangerous. Vivid Memories is very dangerous. Synthesized Uniques dropping in your maps having 3 synth implicits is significant. This is actually a big buff, and I think that this is mandatory if you're going to run any of the synthesis maps. Beyond just doing them once, if you're doing them once for the Maven's Invitation, the Forgotten Point, then in that case, that's fine. You can skip that. But if you're intending to run them more than once, you definitely need this while you're running them. And 100% increased effective additional modifiers on your unique synthesis maps is a big deal. Also, this is a prerequisite because of its location on the tree for the Uber Cortex. So very, very, very scary. Not a huge amount of changes, Stone Deceiver. That's in terms of the there's a couple of little things like in the Eater of Worlds section. There's going to be a couple of little things like Shadow of Hunger is now 30% increased chance to find Eater of Worlds altars instead of 50. Still pretty strong, still very strong, but that has been nerfed a bit. There's a couple of little things like that, but mostly it's still the same, just with more options. Devon, I have no idea why they did that. I have no idea why they've done that. It's just strikes me as being a little bit silly. Hey, Wild Aussie, how's it going, mate? So Insatiable Appetite is one of the new keystones. This is one that we pretty much knew, except the 25% chance to drop an additional exceptional Eldritch Ichor is something that's significant. But I find that the tier 4... So I hate the naming convention for these, but the exceptional tier Ichors don't seem to be all that big a reward. The big reward for the Eater of Worlds was the uniques in the past, and I expect that that'll continue to be the case. Orbs of Conflict kind of weaken the drive to get the exceptional Ichors. That's been my feeling. Yes, DJ POE. Scarab drops, yes. Scarab Duplication, no. So Scarab Duplication is going away, but Scarab Duplication was pretty bad, actually. I often ignored those mods when they came up. Eldritch currency items dropped by the bosses have a 25% chance to be duplicated is a big deal. And also you've got the 25% chance to drop Forbidden Flesh, all good stuff. That's the same as it was. So the Eater of Worlds cluster looks pretty similar, and I think the small nodes on it are terrible, but broadly speaking, this is the only nerf in this area. Still very strong Shadow of Hunger. You're still going to take it. Now, Eldritch Gaze is a new mod, and this is a big deal. 50% increased effective upsides from altars is amazing. Eldritch altars having an additional downside is terrifying. This is something that you're definitely going to want to take, but oh my god, it's going to be nasty. The influence pack size mods have been nerfed. This is a significant point. These now only apply to Eater of Worlds influence. No longer do they apply to Conqueror influence or other influence maps. So that's something that's noticeable, but these mods are still good because the cluster as a whole is just as good as it used to be. So, duplicated currency drops, I don't think there's many of them. There's not many of them at all. But yeah, it does, if you do proc that, then it will drop 2 of each orb. So instead of, like, if it was going to roll 3 Chaos Orbs, it will roll 6 instead. New Searing Exarch cluster has Wrath of the Cosmos in it, which is something that does apply to all. So both Wrath of the Cosmos and Eldritch Gaze apply to everything. So they apply to both the Exarch and to the Eater influence. So you're probably going to want to take both of these for a lot of strategies. And these things are nasty. This one's the nastiest of them all. 25% increased damage for each Eldritch altar used in the area is no joke at all. This is softcore only, and it's going to get a lot of characters killed, but it's also going to be so lucrative that you're going to want to take it. Word of the Exarch is looking like it's no change. And then these Searing Exarch influence pack sizes have gotten a little bit worse because they're only Exarch now. That used to be all influence packs again. Then we have Thirst for Knowledge, which is new, which is the Uber Searing Exarch. And Baptized by Fire is as it was. This, I think, is as it was. Light of Dawn is, I think, the same as it used to be as well. Yeah, so nothing else really seems to have changed there. The new downsides do indeed look really nasty, really nasty. And yeah, that nerf on the Eater altars was needed. Their goal is that the 2 types of influences feel pretty competitive with each other, whereas I think at the moment they haven't got that right with the Maven. The Maven influence is miles worse. Light of Dawn has been buffed. Oh yeah, good point. Light of Dawn used to have the downside that's now been moved to Wrath of the Cosmos. It had a smaller version of that. You're right, you're right. Yeah, that sounds interesting, Wild Aussie. People should just check it out on your channel if you've got a video on it or something. Wild Aussie also has a YouTube channel and a Twitch channel. He's He's got some stuff on Wandering Path. I'd be keen to see that over there at some point. I'm going to have to duck out in probably about 15 minutes and eat lunch, so I want to just get through everything and then have a bit of a thought on that, but I will have a look at yours afterwards. Here we've got the upgraded version of Cosmic Wounds. So this is at the top of the tree. This is the Uber Shaper version, Uber Shaper encounter. And then we have Inevitable Ambush, which is the Shaper and Elder Guardians are healed. Now something is missing here. Something significant has gone away from this cluster. And this is actually a pretty big deal, I think. There is no longer any real source of increased chance to get Watcher's Eyes. Oh, sorry, I'm wrong. Gaze into the Abyss was moved here. Okay, forget that I spoke. This has been moved here. This is now a travel point that you have to take in order to get up to Remnants of the Past. I don't feel like Remnants of the Past and Gaze into the Abyss should be swapped, because I cannot imagine anyone wanting Gaze into the Abyss but not also wanting Remnants of the Past. But anyway, that's the way we are at the moment. So forget that I said that. Gaze into the Abyss is still there. It's still as it was. And this cluster, taken as a whole, is roughly as it used to be. Notice that you get double chance of getting a Maven's Orb if you do the Shaper, or if you do the Uber Elder encounter on level 85, so with Cosmic Wounds allocated. And I'm just calling that Uber Duber Elder. As lame as that name sounds, it's just going to be what I'm going to call it in the short term. Uber Shaper also, I believe, will get this double chance to get a Maven's Orb. Though Orb of Dominance being the new term for Maven's Orb that was changed last league. Oh, okay. I thought you were making content at the moment, Wild Aussie. Okay, cool. If you DM'd it to me over on Discord, let me just have a look for that quickly now. See if I've got that through. I had Discord closed. I usually shut it when I'm streaming. And let's just copy link and have a quick look at the... So, let's just... Sorry about the quick flashbang there. This is the tree that Wild Aussie was suggesting. I will just put a post here with that detail. I can't post it. It's too long. Do you want to just make a comment on the video, Wild Aussie? That might be the way to go. If you just make a comment with this link, then people can mess around with it and have a look at it. I'll have to manually approve it. It'll get eaten by the auto mod, but I will then manually approve it after the video. I think the overall chances to get Guardian map drops are the same, aren't they? 3%, 3%. It's now all in this mod. So 3% here. It used to be 2%, 2% here, 1%, 1% here. Sorry, 1% 0 here, 0%, 1% here. So now it is 3 and 3 up here. I think that's what it was previously. Blight's looking unchanged. So if you liked the Blight support last league, then it's still fine. Torment is interesting. Seance has been changed. Not that it's any different, but the Seance adds a lot of loot to a map. It's something that a lot of people underestimate because Torment's such a clunky mechanic, but Seance actually adds a lot of value. However, now with Arch Nemesis replacing the old mods for rare monsters, this could be a lot more dangerous than it's been in the past, and it's going to do some pretty crazy stuff, I reckon. So the reason that this is significant is that your touched minions have 400% increased quantity, and your rare ones that are possessed, I think, have 800% increased. So that ends up being a lot of extra loot that you get with Seance. It's a big deal. It's one of the biggest increases actually to map drops on it. Oh, just in the video comments, Wild Aussie, on this current stream. If you're in this stream, I'll be saving this stream, so it'll come up. So that's significant. One of the issues with that noise water is that when Kirak does it, the Maven can't witness them. So I got two Cortexes in a row while I was streaming the other day, but you can't get Maven witness on them, so there is a fair bit less utility from it. So yeah, the Seance is actually pretty good, but it's going to be even rippier than it's been in the past, and this is a really rippy mod anyway. Unrelenting Torment is next. This is just super dangerous. This is at a meme level. Really, Unrelenting Torment is meme level. Like, sometimes you want to have the Surrounded by Tormented Spirits for a joke, but this is not something that you generally want to take. This is just for a joke, not really for anything else. I think one of the problems with the Torment support on the tree is that it's in really awkward locations. So let's just confirm that. Torment 1 is here. That's Seance. That's the strong one. And the other one that's Unrelenting Torment is the weaker one, and it's in a better location. This one's, you've got to be in the right spot of the tree to consider it. And then it is pretty good. It is a good payoff. If you're in that area, you probably want to try that out. Just expect to die in hilarious ways to it. Next, we've got the unique map stuff. Deadly Nightmare is something that is massively overrated by players. This is for base farming only. This is not something that is good for XP. It does do a little bit for XP, just not nearly as much as you would expect, because beyond monster level 80, there is very little correlation between monster level and XP. There is still a little bit, but it's just not much. And that's due to the formula for XP that was implemented, I think, in patch 2.1. Vile side area support for Love of the Queen. This is an absolute wrecking ball. Alluring side areas have 60% more damage, and they just will slaughter you. They are so deadly, it's not funny. But, well, actually, they are so deadly that it is funny. They'll drop mortal fragments when you do them, and you will know before going into them whether the 20% proc has happened. I, broadly speaking, suggest not taking this, except in one situation, and that situation is day 1. If you're early to maps, then getting alluring Vile side areas is pretty lucrative because mortal fragments will sell well on day 1. Uber Atsuri farming is a big deal early on, and so that's something that is worth keeping in mind. Once, however, you are settled into endgame, I don't suggest this. I think it's better to get Atsuri fragments from other sources, and actually the best source for them is Betrayal. The divination card, Sambodi's Wisdom, I think, or is it Sambodi's Vow? Sambodi's Vow, sorry. Sambodi's Vow is the one. That is the one that is the best source of them. I thought it was 4% in. I thought it was 4% in 3. Oh, there's a 1-1 at the bottom, isn't there? That's right. Cool. I'll have a look at it. As I say, while Aussie, I'll have a look at it during lunch, which should be in probably 20 minutes or so, which I'll have to end this stream. So yeah, Nightmare is good for. Deadly Nightmare is good for bases week 1, and that's it. It's probably worse than Abysses for bases though. So if you're wanting to farm bases, then the Lightless Legion, I think it's called, the one that gives +3 to the monster level of underground zones, is probably better. Twist of Fate. Your corrupted rare maps and any Atlas missions, map crafting options, and scarabs applying to them are modified unpredictably when opened. This is only an option if your build is capable of ignoring all map mods. Or not necessarily ignoring, but functioning with every combination of map mods, or at least very close to every combination. If, for instance, Zero Regen is a hard no for you, or Can't Leech is a hard no for you, then in that case I would never suggest Twist of Fate. But if that's not the case, if you can do most combinations of mods, then Twist of Fate is worth considering. You want to use your worst scarabs with it. So just throw in your things like Rusted Torment Scarabs, throw them in, and use Atlas missions you don't care about. So maybe you're running a strategy where you actively have no intention of using Betrayal at all. In that case, this is where you throw your Betrayal missions in, and maybe you'll get something for them. And Twist of Fate will then give you some payoff. But broadly speaking, I don't think you want to do this very much. Remember, it only applies to corrupted and rare maps. So I think that this is a very niche keystone that most players won't want to do. The exception is, if people try it and find that there are new abilities that come up in there, then in that case, maybe it's worth a look. I believe it can't roll the same Scarab Zanzibar. That's my understanding from what Chris Wilson said, but I could be wrong. And no, because this only procs if the input map is corrupted. So you'll only randomize the Scarab if you put in a corrupt rare map. Memento Mori is the Cortex Uber version of the Cortex. Venarius drops 3 rare items with 3 less common synthesized implicit modifiers. This sounds amazing. This sounds absolutely bonkers, and if this is as good as I think it is, then it's going to make doing Cortex incredibly lucrative, because you'll be able to get a whole bunch of some of the rarer synth mods, like +1 to maximum power charges, +1 to maximum frenzy charges. There's a lot of really, really good synthesized implicits, and so this could be amazingly good. Even if you get something that's not on a ring, you can still get good stuff like a shield with +1 maximum frenzy charges, or a whole bunch of other good things. Increased percentage stats on belts, stuff like that. Once you've got 3 synthesis modifiers on them, there's just a lot of potential, and I think that this is just really strong. Really, really think that this is nuts. They'll be item level 87 bases, which means they can roll everything on them. And yeah, I think that this is going to be one of the most powerful rewards on the entire tree. But of course, you're going to have to beat Uber Cortex, which we don't know how hard that's going to be. The other thing is that you are going to have to allocate the awful node that is a prerequisite for it. And this is the nasty thing. Vivid Memories, 100% increased effective additional mods on your unique synth maps. So you are going to have a lot of nasty stuff going on there, whether it be a Cortex or a replica Cortex. If you've got a really powerful character, I think something you might consider doing is actually testing this in Standard when it goes live. Just trade for some Cortexes and replica Cortexes and just get some footage of fighting against Venarius in there, Uber Venarius, and see what it's like so that we get a sense as to what's going on. GGG have kept the Uber Cortex fight completely under wraps so far, so we don't know what they're doing with it. This could be really nasty. But yeah, we'll have to see. Something that's important to note as well with Memento Mori, again, because it's locked behind Vivid Memories, you probably want to have immunity to bad ground effects, at least most of them. And that's because bad ground effects get doubled in both their magnitude. So there's a hidden number attached to things like area contains desecrated ground. There's a hidden number attached to that causes them to have a percentage of the ground be covered in rubbish, and that gets doubled. And so you can end up with basically area contains desecrated ground becomes area is desecrated but contains 1 or 2 patches of ground you can stand on. Dance of Destruction. Monsters in your maps deal 25% more damage. Monsters in your maps have 25% life. No, don't take this. It's basically as simple as that. Even if you're playing like a Juggernaut that has damage issues at the moment, no, it's too much of an increase in damage. It's going to slow you down because you're going to be dying too much. Grand Design is next. Small Atlas Keystones do nothing, and you gain 1% pack size per allocated notable Atlas passive. I don't think this is good enough. This is my current thoughts. I don't think it's good enough, but someone might prove me wrong. There might be an Atlas that comes out with this that ends up being really good, but we'll have to try and see it. If you're going to use this at all, it's going to be in conjunction with blocking a lot of stuff. So you'd be going here and going like picking a bunch of these notables here that are really quick to get to. And then at that point, you're starting to look like a lot of pack size, but you're also just losing a lot of value on the way. And I think it's going to be really hard to justify like losing all your small Atlas passive skills. That's going to mean that you're going to have much worse map sustain, and all you're getting is maybe 25 to 35% pack size, which is a big deal, but it's probably not enough. Losing all of the map effect nodes at the top, like DJ POE is saying, yeah, there's a lot of loss that you have there. Wild Aussie has a tree for that, so I'll have a look at it, but I'm not that impressed with it so far. Next, we have all the seals. A lot of people have been asking about these. So my gut reaction to the seals is early league, seal nothing. Middle league, seal things that take a lot of time that you're not speccing into. Sacred Grove, maybe you're not speccing into Harvest, maybe you're just not interested in it, maybe you're banned from TFT, whatever. In that case, go ahead and seal Sacred Grove. Breaches, they're pretty quick generally. You can walk into a breach, it's just a bunch of extra monsters, and so I don't think you're getting enough for sealing it, but seal them if you really hate breaches. Basically, Abysses take longer. Abysses are more of a time commitment than breaches are, and so that one's fine to seal. Legions are a bit of a time commitment and don't pay off well unless your build is well spec for Legions, so that's one you might consider sealing. Expedition takes a lot longer again. Again, something you might consider sealing, especially if you're not speccing into them. So there's a lot of options there. You can seal these things if you're not intending to juice them, and you will then get some. You will get a payoff for it, but there's a fairly big cost to it. Shadow Shaping is next. Maps found cannot be your favorite maps, and when they're found, so this is the one that lets you ban up to 12 maps. and then gain chances for special implicits for each map you've favorited. This is a different style of using the favorited map system. Instead of using it to favorite maps, you're using it as a ban list, and I do think this is pretty good. This is not a power choice, but where it's good is if you are someone who likes playing variety of maps. Like I tend to prefer a variety of maps. I don't like playing the same map 50 times in a row. So shadow shaping will help you with that, and it will still let you ban maps like core that you absolutely hate. So that one's really good as an option, but most people shouldn't take it. It's just if you're in that category of you want variety, then shadow shaping will give you variety. Shadow shaping will give you a lot of variety. Stream of consciousness. Your maps cannot be modified by fragments is an ouch. This is something I like early league, and I don't like it late league. At the moment, 50% more base chance to contain extra content, but you can't use scarabs. This is essentially like getting a tiny fragment of a rusted scarab in every map in exchange for not being able to use them. And as a result, I think it's something that's going to be good only while you can't afford scarabs. As soon as you can afford scarabs, or as soon as you've got a decent collection of scarabs that are stockpiled, I would suggest you unspec Stream of Consciousness and you go back to using them. Maybe, in fact, you'll keep this until you unlock the Legion 5-way map device. And once you've done that, then you'll unspec Stream of Consciousness and never go back to it. It's on the way to Amplified Energies, is it? So it's, let's see, the location of Stream of Consciousness. It's, oh yeah, it is in a very good location for early league. That's true. So yeah, it's perfectly fine. Take it early, but take it early with a view to getting rid of it. Uber Maven, not much to say here, except that she always drops an elevated sextant. That's only going from 70% to 100% drop rate, so it's not all that significant there, but it's okay. Captivated Interest. This one's fun. This one is really, you feel arrogant. You know, you're like, I don't care, I can beat these fights. Let's have them all be released at once. Let's just bring on the madness. That's what this is. The payoff is significant if you can make it work, but of course it does make the fights a lot harder. This is why they removed the mod roll on them, on the Crucible invitations, to have them all be released at once. Instead, it's an option you can spec. Boss killers that are extremely overpowered, this is going to help them a lot. They're going to want this, not so much because of the extra loot, but just because it makes Maven invitations faster. Once you're at the point that you're so strong, you're going to want to take this for sure. 25% more Crescent Splinters is definitely a big deal, but just making them faster is the biggest deal there. I think it's really good, honestly. I think most people will not be strong enough to use this, but if you are, you're definitely going to want to take it. And yeah, Cast on Death Discharge memes. That will definitely work. Orbs of Conflict being duplicated is very significant, and that's also the... and then there's 25% chance to drop an Awakened support gem on completing the Maven's Crucible or defeating the Maven. That's 25% increased chance. Pay for play is pretty solid. So that is the one that is, I think that's here, isn't it? This is a pretty good set of points, but of course you are doing it. Well, you have to take it if you want Uber Maven. It is a 5-pointer though, so it's coming at a big price. I think it's worth it. The most toys is marginal, like 10% chance to get an extra Witness map boss. It's like, yeah, you'll take it. It's an extra little bonus. It's on your way to something else, so that's here, isn't it? So you'll take it because you have to if you want to take the thing behind it. But Captivated Interest is the more exciting thing there. All of the quantity found in Maven's Crucible nodes have been nerfed a little bit, but Captivated Interest has picked up that extra strength. Singular Focus is next. Now, this one is a trap, I think. This is the one that means that you only get your favorited maps, and non-favorited maps instead drop as basic currency items. That sounds great until you realize that I believe this is going to automatically vendor your Cortexes, automatically vendor your Shaper Guardian maps. If that's the case, then I'd probably say you don't want to take this. We'll know that for certain after people have played with this for a couple of days. We'll get a sense whether it is actually auto-vendoring those maps, because you'll know because no one's getting Shaper Guardian maps. They've got like 15 Elder Guardian maps and no Shaper Guardians. There'll probably be a Reddit post complaining about it, and then someone will do a little bit of digging and they'll say, hey, have you got Singular Focus allocated? And then they'll be like, yes, I've got Singular Focus allocated. And then it's like, oh, that's how you just vended all of your maps. And that's an interesting question. How does this work if you never favorite a map? I think, could you never favorite a map and run this in low tier content? I think that's worth a thought as well. I don't think it's going to be worth doing, but it's worth thinking about. It's silly, but I like the idea. We'll have to find out, yeah, if it's only Atlas maps or if it applies to everything. The way I read this, it applies to Cortexes. That's the way that I read the text on this, is that it applies to this applies to Cortexes because they're a map, they're not favorited. Height of Hubris is next. 100% increased effective modifiers on your invitations. This is very dangerous. This is very high risk and very mediocre reward. I think that this is very much just take for the challenges or to show off. I don't think that the payoff is here on this. It's not giving you anywhere near enough. It's not giving you anywhere near enough extra loot to justify how dangerous it is. So what you can do with Singular Focus is you can just pick the same map 12 times, remember. 12 at endgame, 8 to 10 a bit before endgame. You can do that if you're wanting Singular Focus, and that map will drop a lot. You'll probably be able to sustain just that map. Or, of course, you can do 2 or 3 different maps if you prefer. Now we have the other sealing of content. Ethics Review for Metamorph seal. This one's a little bit more reasonable. I think that this one's okay because random Metamorphs get really annoying, to be honest. It means Tane's appearing and annoying you all the time. Metamorph doesn't have any really precious loot that you can only get from it. You can get the stuff from Heist as well. So, and you can also easily pick it up in trade now as well. So I think Ethics Review is one of the ones that you can definitely seal. Fungal Remission, definitely consider sealing this if you're not speccing Blight. Again, Blight encounters just take ages, but maybe you'll want to do that because you'll want to have them because you like them. Ominous Silence, ironically, is actually really good for one Delirium strategy, and that is if you're trading for 20% and higher Delirious maps. Maps that have Delirium layers applied to them can't get a Mirror of Delirium anyway, and so it's just free juice if you were to take Ominous Silence and you're doing a strategy using Persecutory Delusions, using Pathological, and trading for other players for Delirium Orbs and Delirious maps. So this is actually one that people will, as much as Delirium is one of the highest juice mechanics in the game, you will find people will spec Ominous Silence on that basis. If you do this, make sure that you unspec it when you run out of Delirious maps, otherwise you'll have a tragic outcome from that. Next we have the Secular Focus for Rituals. Again, Ritual's something that takes a lot of time. Same as Blight, early league. It's the sort of thing that you can spec. You can spec this if your approach is to run past things. I will say that it's been raised in chat that early Blight is good, and I agree. But also, Blight you need to do once in order to unlock your Cassia, ability to use Cassia. So even in Trade League, do at least one Blight encounter before you even consider Fungal Remission. The Real Trap, straight and narrow. People are going to spec this because their attitude is, I don't like Heist. And then at some point in the league, these people are going to ask, hey, I need to afford an upgrade. I don't have any currency. What do you suggest? My immediate suggestion is always, go and sell all your Heist paraphernalia. And then they say, I don't have any because I allocated straight and narrow. And then it's like, well, you did that to yourself. Basically, Smuggler's Caches are free. Smuggler's Caches are free loot. Contracts are free loot. Blueprints are free loot. They're easy to sell in bulk. And you're just basically giving them up. It'd be different if you said, like, if this read, you cannot go to the Rogue Harbour, 2% chance to contain extra content, I would say a lot of people should take it. Everyone that dislikes Heist. But if that's not the case, this is just a complete trap. Wandering Path is next. This is the one that doubles the effect of small Atlas passives and causes notables to gain nothing. This is the one that Wild Aussie had a suggestion for before. I'll have a look at that later. But this is the tree in question if you're interested in having a look at it yourself. Interestingly, you're getting 60% increased effective modifiers on your maps. That means that that mod that gives 60% reduced effect of auras is going to be 96% reduced effect of auras instead, which is going to be pretty rude. Something you could consider is also taking things like Chayula Breach chance, Ornithol Breach chance, you know, pick up a couple of powerful nodes along the way like that. This just totally transforms the way you would build an Atlas passive tree. There are two types of trees. There are ones that allocate Wandering Path and ones that don't. The vast majority of people will take ones that don't, but this will do some fun things for some people. And this one is going to take a lot of time to parse exactly what to do with. I think there's a lot that you could do with it. There's also a lot of mechanics where so much of the power is tied to something like Expedition. So much of the power is tied to the 50% increased chance of for runic monsters to drop Expedition logbooks, and also to the 20% increased number of explosives, 35% increased radius of explosives, that Wandering Path is really bad in conjunction with the Expedition mechanic. So you have to give a lot of thought to this, and Wandering Path is going to be something that people will come up with cool ideas for all League. But I do think mostly it's a bad thing on most trees. Most people shouldn't consider it, but there will be a couple of people that come up with some really good ideas for it at some point. Wellspring of Creation. Monsters have 50% more life, kind of hurts, but monsters doing 25% less damage. This is like going to be so good in softcore, especially once you get stronger. I mean, it's obviously really good in hardcore always, but in softcore, as your characters get really strong, Wellspring of Creation is going to let you pretty much avoid being one-shot while still being able to one-shot monsters. This is really good, and it's really early on. I think this node is fantastic, and a lot of people are going to take it. I don't think anyone should take the opposite version of this at all, under pretty much any situation. And no, it doesn't work with Detonate Dead. It does not cause corpses to have 50% more life. That's been confirmed by GGG. Valley of Darkness is next. Rare monsters in your maps have one additional modifier. This is upside and downside in one, because the monsters are going to be harder, but they're also going to drop more loot. Arch Nemesis has been confirmed to affect, like the modifiers on rares have been confirmed to affect their XP, their life, their base damage, and also their loot drops. So this is basically an extra booster. It's significant. Yeah, I think Wellspring is just tuned wrong at the moment. I think it should probably be 100% more life, and then it wouldn't feel like a difficulty slider. As it is, I think it's just absolutely crazy. Like this is just one of the strongest nodes on the tray, except for like certain situations. There'll be situations where people don't want to take it, but in general, this thing is nuts. Valley of Darkness, really good, like +1, oh, well, really high risk, high reward. This is necessary for a number of challenges, so you're going to need to take this and then unspec it later if it's too rippy. But I think it's really, really good. Thoughts on Wellspring of Creation for Righteous Fire. You are probably one of the exceptions that don't want to use this, I would say. And that's my first thoughts. I want to test this in practice, but for the moment I would say don't spec it, but be aware that it's there as an option. You can always spec into it if you want to. It's really close to the start too. It's here. No. Was it? Here. Really close to the start, so you can get it in 1, 2, 3, 4. You can get it in 5 points at any point if you do want it. But I think that Righteous Fire is one of those builds that kills slower and probably doesn't want to use that early on. Next, we have all the adjacent map drop chances. These are being changed so that they're applying to one monster instead of the map boss. That is to deal with how overpowered boss rush strategies were. For most players, this won't be any difference, and it will still help you progress your Atlas fast, but you will need to kill a few more monsters in maps. If you were not doing a strategy where you are leaving 30%, only killing 30% of the monsters in the map, then this change is pretty minimal. Time for some action. The Atlas changes are moderate. If you remember, any tree that worked in 3.17 should work, but there's a bunch of new things as well. Paul, I don't know. I don't think they are, but I don't know on that front. On the question about Chayula Sexton, I think it will be expensive, but I think you'll be fine to get that, just by virtue of taking Gatekeepers and Chayula Breach Chance. Have these two spec'd for a while, and also at the same time have the Covetous Shrine spect. And once you've done that, you should get the you should get the Chaeula stuff just by chance over time. Both the Chaeula version and the any Breach Lord plus Covetous Shrine. Those two challenges, they're not that rare anymore. They were rare when you couldn't bias your Atlas towards certain things, but now that you can, it'll be fine. For an ambush strategy, for other mechanics to add to it, ambush goes well with Vaal Temple. Arj, if you're wanting to try that, I would give that a shot. I would give Vaal Temples a shot with ambush and just get a feel as to how Vaal Temples are now. They've done some cool stuff with it. Unfortunately for Fafanugan, yes it does, and it's going to wreck people. I hope they change that. I think that that it should only be monsters that deal a 25% increased damage, but for the moment, nah. You're out of luck. You're going to be taking a lot of extra damage from Righteous Fire, and Righteous Fire is probably really hurt by that, by the implementation of Wrath of the Cosmos by it being so good. Everything else I think is the same. I'm just going to make sure that is the case, and everything else is indeed the same. Blight and Delirium should be the only change you might consider for Blight Delirium. I'm assuming that you're doing a Delirium Mirror tree there. That would be the same. If you are wanting to experiment with Delirium layers and Blight encounters on maps, then in that case you might have a different tree. Boss rushing is not the same. Like, the actual boss rushing strategy is dead, but you could modify it to make it work. You're going to need to kill a fair chunk of the map, and you're probably best doing it on a map like Shore, where you can get to the boss quickly, but you can also kill a lot of monsters on the way there. Bone Shatter is going to hurt as well more too, and Ward Loops will probably be bricked by that strategy. Ward Loops should not be bricked by the Arch Nemesis mods, I don't think. I think that mod will be rare enough that you can just accept that once in a blue moon you'll die to Droughtbringer, because already once in a blue moon those builds die to Nullifier. Anyways, I am going to need to call the stream to an end at this point, unfortunately. Just based on the timing. I want to check if anyone... Does anyone know of any Path of Exile streamers that are online at the moment on YouTube? Reason I ask for YouTube specifically is that there is a newly added raids function for Path of Exile. I'm just looking to see if I can find anyone. Tenki sometimes streams, but he doesn't seem to be online at the moment. I'm just going to check if anyone else is online currently. So I might just do Path of Exile stream. And let's just see if there's anyone that's currently... So there's me, and it looks like I can only see myself, unless anyone else can... Wild Aussie says that he knows someone that may be online, so I will try and make a live redirect happen. I don't know how to do that, so I've got to figure that out. But if you stick around for maybe 3 or 4 minutes, we will see if that's going to happen. So Zanzibar's saying that there is someone else. Why am I not seeing anyone? Is it... am I not looking in the right place here? Yeah, I tend to only stream on YouTube if I think that there'll be some interest in the stream after it finishes. But that's my usual approach. Oh, there it is, live. And then we'll go Path of Exile within live, if I can do that. Does that work? And that doesn't work, so... Yeah, YouTube has finally brought about something similar to Twitch's raids, but you can't just... It's much less easily done than it is on... It's much less easily done. So let's just see if there's about... It's really also hard to find to filter just to show live stuff. Wild Aussie has got someone, so can you send a link on Discord to the stream in question, Wild Aussie, and I will try to figure out the live redirect. Also, let them know that I'll raid them, because they may not be expecting it. I've got to work out how to do this, so it shouldn't be too hard. As soon as Wild Aussie comes through, as soon as I open Discord again, then I will have that information. Oh, okay, so that's that they're in Korean language, are they? I'm just having a quick look here if there's... Yeah, thanks, mate. I will just see if I can make this work for the live redirect. How do I do this? It's somewhere in here. Is it in customization redirect? Yeah, there we are. So other channels. Ah, I don't have any redirect privileges. Okay, that's fine. I need to... The person that I would be raiding would need to be... I think we need to be subscribed to each other or something like that. Anyways, that's fine. I'm not going to be able to make this work now. So thank you all for tuning in. May your Valobs have interesting results. And I will see you folks around.